Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 182. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comics forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. Don't make me humiliate you in front of your new girlfriend. So says the sensei of the whatnot Segulan and the Duke of You Know.
How's it going, eh?
Batman and Robin number 5 is one of many books we're going to talk about. I also want to talk about the Rebels Annual featuring Starro the Conqueror's origin. And please check the show notes because as when we're recording this right now, Jim and I are going to do a couple mini-sodes this week. We're either going to do 2 or 3. Mini-sodes for us means like an hour and a half for you.
Right. We're going to take it light, you know?
Yeah. I'm doing some work around my house, and I didn't want to avoid putting out an episode tonight, so we decided to put together a smaller episode and then come back a couple times this week for you. So you're getting at least 2 shows from us this week. Preacher is for sure going to be kicking off next week. I don't know what episode number that's going to be because it depends on what we do here, but it is for sure next week, so that will be continuing in order the way we were going to do it. Jim, I want to remind everyone about the Hero Initiative. That's heroinitiative.org. We've got a handy-dandy link on ragingbullets.com, and I want to continue supporting them because I think it's just wonderful. Our sponsors for this episode are dcbservice.com and instocktrades.com. Over at dcbservice.com, you can pick up the Batman 80-page Giant number 1 at a special discount, which was written by a whole bunch of people. I wanted to do the 80-page Giant, though, Jim, because I've been really liking these offerings as they've been coming out. The amount of depth in the story. I know Steve Niles is one of the guys. Ivory Madison's on there. David Tishman. Like I say, I'm doing some of the people. Simon Spurrier. There's a whole selection of writers that are involved in this 80-page Giant. But I'm anxious. I'm enjoying the Batman universe so much. It says it's going to feature Batman, Robin, Alfred, Catwoman, Mr. Freeze, Veil, Poison Ivy, and more. It's going to be cool. So it's a one-shot. I wonder if this one's going to be interconnected like some of the other ones that we've seen. It's $5.99 regularly, 50% off, only $2.99. And you liked the Justice League one that just came out.
Yes. Yeah, definitely love the Justice League one. That was a nice read. And
one of the great things about DCBService.com is $5.99 is the regular price for that, and we're getting it for $3.
Outstanding, right there.
Well, you know what? I got to be honest with you, Jim. With the amount of comic output that's being published right now, if that wasn't at 50% off, I might take a pass. And just because of the $6 price point, that's 2 books, basically.
Yeah, it's a little bit expensive. This is a nice deal we got going here.
Over at instocktrades.com, Preacher, Jim. That's going to be coming next week from us. We're going to be kicking that off with the first 4 issues of 12. We're going to be doing a 3-part review of Preacher. Regularly, if you want to get that hardcover, it's regularly $39.99. 47% off, only $21.19. Volume 1 and 2 in trade are also available at a discount. That's issues 1 through 17. 47% off, only $7.94 each, and we're kicking off that discussion next week. So I'm excited to talk some Preacher. Jim, we have a contest up on the website called Ragdoll of the Whatnot, featuring, of course, the good sensei. And we did get a song parody that is going to be a part of that contest, which I'm excited to be airing on the end of this episode. It's a parody about Raging Bullets. It's about you and me for a contest entry. I didn't expect a song, and it's really good. So that's another contest entry that we have. Remember, we're going to have 5 contest winners. The first one is a trade paperback on me. Second, third, fourth, and fifth are all going to be from our comic grab bag, which is donations from me and listener donations that are going to be in there. So you got a whole bunch of comics to choose from. The entries have been great. We even got a story that's going up on the website, which is awesome.
Everybody's thinking outside the box. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, I love the contest participation. And remember that anybody who enters that contest gets a chance to be on the show and join us on the show. So that's ragingcontest@gmail.com or ragingbullets@gmail.com for any of those entries. Go ahead and send them in, and we'd love to have you participate. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
If you want to email us, it's ragingbullets@gmail.com. We have a wonderful show forum community, so please consider joining us there. We love your voicemails. It's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. And over these next couple episodes, we'll be having emails and voicemails as well. So this will be great to have more listener interaction as well. So, Jim, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the books. Jim, let's kick this one off with Batman and Robin number 5. I wanted to talk about this particular issue just because, first of all, I've been loving the Bat books. I'm a huge Bat fanatic, and to be able to enjoy Bat books as much as I'm enjoying them right now is, for me, just a pure joy. This issue in particular was pretty cool because we finally got confirmation on who Red Hood really is.
Yeah.
Which I was... Go ahead.
And we got to see, one of the things I'm really digging about Jason is we're seeing Jason come back to some of his older versions of who he was. He's running his version of the Bat Code. We had him turn into a blob of goop earlier. We had him become a drug kingpin. We've had him do all types of stuff that kind of deviated from what I really thought was a good core Jason story. And we're seeing Jason Todd come back, and I'm really digging this.
Do you like one of the things, and we might as well just jump into this, we got to see when he took off the hood that he's having some side effects due to his resurrection. Do you like that?
Oh, definitely love that. And I like the fact that we saw originally that he's a redhead, and Bruce had him dye his hair so he would look like Dick Grayson. I thought that was a neat touch that, that's something Batman would do. You'd want him to look like the previous Robin so the villains would be kind of thrown off and wouldn't start thinking that it's, somebody new, so they'll know there's a concurring going on. But now Jason's being Jason. He's being his own guy, and in his own sick and twisted way, it's actually kind of good for him.
Well, it is kind of his way of stepping out of the shadow finally and kind of doing things his way, because for so long he's tried to be the better Batman, and now he really feels that Batman, the concept of Batman, is broken. And this is his way of really kind of embracing something totally different. I like that there was the explanation of the streak in his hair too.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty good book. What do you think of Sasha?
Scarlet?
Yeah.
I love Scarlet. She's very appropriate for, to be Jason's Robin. She's his version of his sidekick. He's got his twisted version of the Bat Code. She's a little bit twisted version of the Robin. But I say there's more to her than we've seen so far. There's going to be more coming out, and I think we're going to get some interesting stuff, some interesting stories coming from her alone.
It is interesting, the dynamic that she brings to the table. I mean, she killed her. I mean, the kickoff to the issue, she killed her dad.
Yeah.
All because of what was going on with her because of Pig and that whole situation. She's completely snapped, which does make her, I agree with you, even more appropriate for Jason because he's nuts as well. I got to be honest with you. When I saw this Red Hood and Scarlet at first, I was underwhelmed. I'm not saying in the issue itself, but when we saw those preview shots, we saw that pill on his head, and I'm kind of like, oh, we're going there with this, and I was like, ugh. And now that I've seen it actually in the issue and seen what they look like in operation, I'm really impressed. Which is a complete 180 for me from when I first saw it, because my first thought when I saw it, I was like, oh, that looks a little cheesy. But it actually has turned out really good, and I'm really enjoying that. Philip Tan's artwork in this was really great. The shot of Scarlet throwing her weapons,
or blades or whatever those things are,
was, I thought, really impressive, because I really wanted to see something out of her.
Yeah, it's weird because she's coming along quickly in just the fighting and the training, and I don't know if Jason is schooling her or if this is stuff she learned when she was with Pig. Is this stuff that she just knows herself, or is it just one of those kind of, winging it? But she's doing a really good job of it, because that's one of the things, the fight sequences we've seen in this. We've seen we saw a couple fights going on between Batman and Robin, Red Hood and Scarlet, and Red Hood and Scarlet won all the fights, and you'd think with Batman and Robin they should be able to take these guys. Dick is a better fighter, than Jason Todd. I like Jason Todd. I love the character, and I'm not knocking him. But Dick Grayson, if those two were to go 1-on-1, I would put my money on Dick Grayson. Just because. But you're looking at these fights, and so far, Jason schooled them every single time they threw down with each other. Jason is the one who walked away. Now, part of it is because, in the one fight, Scarlet got the upper hand on Robin, and that distracted Dick, and Jason shot him. But on a couple of the other fights, though, it's a solid, clean win. Clean win is Jason gets a clean win. That I would say and put it in his favor. So that was something that kind of like shocked and amazed me and enjoyed, and I was impressed by. That this Batman, can lose fights. This Batman isn't Bruce Wayne. He isn't I'm going to be able to take everybody down. I don't want to say makes mistakes, because there's nothing I would say that Dick did wrong in this situation, but there is a vulnerability to him.
There's also a room for growth, which I find refreshing, because I like that he's not you don't sit there and say I agree with you. I like his vulnerability. It feels natural. It does feel like Dick Grayson has these years that he's been operating, that he is a veteran, and he thinks and operates like a veteran, but he's also not Bruce, and he's trying to find, again, we're seeing him trying to find his own role of Batman, trying to make Batman as a concept work for him and make himself work for Batman as a concept. And it is trying to find a happy medium and a balance that works for him in this. I liked that Jason was playing off of this whole, the media nowadays. Because our television would eat this up. Our internet would eat this type of thing up. This whole let the punishment fit the crime. And in a world where, with what's gone on with Gotham City, even if you just look at what just happened with Pig, for example, all the people that were abused by Pig, then you've got the Penguin, and you see Batman defending the Penguin, protecting the Penguin, when Jason Todd wanted to kill this man. And, honestly, most people in Gotham would know how corrupt the Kingpin is. I mean, I'm sorry, not the Kingpin.
The King. They know how corrupt the Kingpin is as well.
They do.
He's in another universe, but they
Gotham
still know
everything. They're really in tune. Yeah, but the Penguin, they would know how corrupt the Penguin is. And then, with people like Two-Face running around and Black Mask, these are streets that aren't safe. Corruption is something that surrounds them. And you would think that the average citizen who stuck around and toughed it out in Gotham wants to see hard justice on these people. They want to see them taken out. They feel at this point that the system is broken. The system is not doing enough to take them out. We saw the riots during Battle for the Cowl. Granted that they dwelled down and they calmed down a bit when we got a Batman back, but those people are still out there, and those rioting people are the ones that are voting in this particular poll right now. You got to believe that, and I do like that this feels organic spinning out of that. This is a Gotham right now that the people are not happy. They're not pleased with their environment, and they shouldn't be. Would you be pleased living in a city like this?
Oh, God, yeah. See, I've had my days where I really would completely side with them. And it's, those are usually the days when I'm getting knocked around and just getting smacked and just things are not going well for me, but when I have those days where the good guys win, and, it's one of those kind of clearing my head moments where I'm like, okay, yeah, the system does work. This is a good thing, and this is the right way to go. And it's one of the things that really impressed me with this was how, not only people like Alfred, Gordon, Dick even responded to how the media was treating. They're like, oh, God, this is not good. And even Gordon, when he was talking to Batman, saying, hey, we can't have this. We can't have eye for an eye. We can't have, vigilantes out for blood. And I liked seeing that cop in him step up and say, no, this is not the way to run a city. This is not how I run my city. And for me, that was a cool moment, Jim Gordon moment.
The one other thing, too, when I was thinking about this poll, the way the internet works, when you think about it, it's a lot different than pulling the trigger yourself to vote on a poll. Like for myself, when I vote on polls, I typically I probably overthink things. I'm like, okay, if I was in the situation, could I pull the trigger? So my vote would be, of course, I can't do it. I wouldn't be able to do it myself. So why would I vote yes? Let the punishment fit the crime. But I agree with your sentiment as far as there are days where you can see why you're like, okay, no, why are we bothering filling up our jails with these people that can't be rehabilitated and things like that? So I see that side of it too. So it's an interesting dynamic. But I do think it's a lot easier on internet polls to vote certain reactive ways because you're not directly involved, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, you think about the Dark Knight, that great scene where the people were on the boat and they had the detonator for the other boat, and just it's a boat full of villains, boat full of criminals, the worst type of people, and those honest citizens are sitting there, and the one guy's, give me that, and as he's holding it in his hand, he can't turn the key.
Exactly.
Now it's one thing to say, kill them all, let God sort it out, and it's another to actually be the one pushing the button or pulling the trigger. It's kind of a tough thing to do, and part of it's when you go that route, when you actually go down that path, it's they always talk about it in Batman, with the back code. Once you cross the line, you can't cross back, and it's that the humanity, it's the moral value, it's just the knowing the difference between right and wrong, whatever you want to refer to it. The everyday, average, normal person has that line. And when it actually comes down to it, they have a hard time stepping over it. And it's actually one of the things why, like with the police and with military and stuff like that, they have the rules of conduct. The rules of conduct. It's when can I actually take
the rules of conduct.
It's flip, okay. The rules of conduct. Okay, it's when you can actually have when
the rules of conduct are that you throw Kingpin in jail. Sorry. You're right about rules of conduct, though. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. It gives you the peace of mind, the guidelines that you're sitting there, and afterwards you can deal with saying, okay, I did shoot that person. Here's why. Threat, direct threat to the life of these officers, these innocent people. If I had done what I was going to do, he would have been a future threat to somebody else. You have these rules of order that it gives you. I don't want to say justification, but it gives you a peace of mind that you did everything you could to avoid taking the life. You did everything you could to not crossing the line.
I really enjoyed these bits with Jason and Sasha where they were talking about this concept of branding. Because today it is all about the brand, and that is how you get your message across and try to make a change. And we've seen that approach now from Jason. He's really playing the system. He's trying to be a today kind of solution to the problems. He's really kind of like, okay, what I've been doing before isn't working. I still have the same goals, but I'm going to try a little bit of a different approach. And as far as his physical approach, it's the same. But as far as how he's trying to present himself publicly is completely different. He's taking a much more aggressive role in that, because it's not just about doing what he feels is the right way to handle it and what's broken about how Batman did it. It's also about discrediting the Batman brand. He knows Dick Grayson's in that role. He obviously feels slighted that was taken from him, because he felt that was at one point his legacy. He was the one that was going to take Batman beyond what Bruce could ever have done, and Dick beat him for that. And now he is coming back and saying, fine, I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to create a whole new concept for what a vigilante is, and I'm going to get the people behind me, which is funny because we've got right now a quote-unquote Batman of the people. Dick is much more open. He is much more open to smiling and being in the camera and, than Bruce ever would have been. He is a very public Batman. He is making arrests and letting people see that he's making these arrests and, dropping these villains off to the police. He's using the Batman concept to bring hope to Gotham in a way that Bruce wouldn't have. Bruce did that as well, but Bruce did it by scaring the bejesus out of the criminals. And really, in many ways, people were comforted by that fear. But this is a different Batman. Dick can't operate that way. And so because of that, he is using the fear on the criminals. He is using that superstition on the criminals. But he can't take it to the same level Bruce did, but he has other strengths. He is a charismatic person, and he can use part of that charisma and that interactivity. He is that friendly big brother kind of guy, and he's making Batman a big brother type of role. And I like this. I'm finding it refreshing.
Well, it's funny because you mentioned how he's inspiring hope. That's the kind of thing I was saying where, when I have my bad days where you need that, that goodness that comes in and that picks you up. That's what he's doing for Gotham. Right now, Gotham doesn't need the big scary bat. Gotham does need the person who's going to inspire hope, not hope through fear, or not, comfort that he's out there. Because, with Bruce was on the job, people were comforted by seeing the big bat, seeing the logo flash in the sky, knowing, okay, Batman's about to kick someone's butt. All right, go get him, bats. But this Batman is kind of changing things around, getting people saying, okay, let's, Gotham's not that bad of a place. Gotham is a good town. There are good people here. Look, there's Batman. Look at that. He's a cool guy. Oh, he's working with the cops now. Oh, that's neat. He's helping them out. They're doing, better arrest records, better, conviction rates. They're going after everybody on the line, not just, Mr. Freeze, not just Joker. He's going after down the line. So it is a good thing to see, and that's, I think, one of the big things that hurt. Well, I don't want to say hurt, but it was a real big shot, in the arm to Dick when the media was running those stories about him saying, we have Batman and Robin protecting the Penguin, yet we have this new guy who is going to kill all the criminals. He's not going to arrest them. He's going to take them down, eye for an eye, life for a life type thing. So I think that was the biggest shock to the whole thing, that Dick's mission, that they're kind of, the media, looking for the story, looking for the juicy story. So they're actually kind of undermining Gotham's safety.
Yeah, it's funny. I like that Sasha brought up the concept, are we making our own enemies here?
Oh, yeah, big time.
They weren't just talking about Batman and Robin. They weren't talking about characters like the Joker and Catwoman. She was saying, what about drug dealers? She just came from this horrible nightmare with Professor Pig. Are we making our own villains? And it was foreshadowing to where this story ultimately is going. And I really liked that I like the idea that there are going to be ramifications with a whole new group of people because of the way that they operate. They are now crossing lines and getting the notice of people in a way that Batman and Robin wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Because Batman and Robin didn't cross that line of killing. Jason Todd does. Red Hood does. And because of the way Sasha and him operate, they've made some powerful enemies that are out for blood vengeance. And the introduction of this flamingo guy, how do you like your face, Jim?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a pretty nasty. Now, is this a new guy or is this an existing villain, or what do we got here?
I've never heard of Flamingo before.
Okay, yeah. Because, this is not a guy who's playing around. This is what happens when you get, things get a little bit nastier. The bad guys have to get nastier. And it is funny because just, with Scarlett's, just her opinions, and she was like one of the main narrator throughout this issue. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to see this character, growing on and actually maybe even turning on Red Hood. When everything is said and done, she realizes, hey, you're an idiot. This is not how I got to operate. I got to do something good for myself and move on that way.
If she does that, though, I don't see her turning to the side of Batman and Robin.
No.
I think she really is nuts.
Yeah,
and the only way I see her turning on him, except, part of me thinks she's kind of like his Harley Quinn. Not in the sense that she's in love with him per se, but the attraction to him is she feels a certain sense of safety. And I think as long as he keeps her safe, she'll stay with him. Because of what she's been through, the violation that she went through Pig and all that, I think to feel safe and to feel that she's got that someone to latch onto. So I don't know. I'm curious to see. I think we need to see more development of this relationship of these characters to see if it's going to be a long-term thing or a short-term thing. Because I'm with you. I could see it going either way. But there is a part of me that can't help but wonder if, due to her psychosis, if she might not become like heavily attached to him as kind of a father figure, or in many ways a big brother figure in a twisted way, the way that Dick Grayson is to Damian, maybe? I don't know.
Interesting you mentioned that relationship. That's one of the things I'm really digging, seeing the relationship of Dick and Damian grow throughout these issues. We'll see later on in the annuals, we'll see a more mature, a more responsible Damian in those issues. And I think part of the reason we're seeing a more team player even from Damian later on is because of how he's acting throughout, especially throughout this story arc. When they first, like issue 1 of Batman and Robin, he really had little, if no, respect for Dick Grayson. And as time's gone on, we're slowly seeing he's learning from the past mistakes. In this issue, every time he got into trouble was because he rushed into the fight. He didn't sit back, he didn't plan, he didn't organize. In the annuals, we'll see him actually sit back and do a little bit more listening to when Dick tells him, no, don't go in. Okay, I'm not going to go in.
Do you also think that Scarlet getting a one-up on him is Damian's own conscience there? Because she comes at him with some verbal, you were there with Pig. You said you'd save us. You promised. And I'm looking at those bits and I'm like, Damian is one that, Damian's a trained fighter. He's got those skills. And in a one-on-one match, I can't help but believe that Damian could beat Scarlet. Except there is the edge of craziness. And I think a truly crazy person who is willing to go all out with no holding back and no concept of self-preservation I do believe Scarlet, when she snaps like that, doesn't really care about her own well-being.
It's hard to fight somebody like that. It's hard to fight somebody who would, sacrifice their own life just to get you. And she honestly would. She would now she doesn't want to she doesn't want to die. She doesn't have a death wish. But if she needed to hurt herself for, to get you, she would do that. Just because, she's got her, her mindset what she's going to do. And I think part of the reason she got the one up on Damian, who is a much better fighter than she is because of the psychological thing. She threw him. Damian does not know how to deal with emotions. He spent his whole life training in violence and death and combat. He's never trained to deal with emotions like love, lust, regret, remorse, any of the type of emotions like that spectrum, he's never dealt with. Mm-hmm. So she threw it in his face and then was able to take advantage of his distraction.
It is, at the end of the issue, we see this great bit, because they do one-up Batman and Robin, but ultimately, and ultimately they one-up Batman and Robin because they're willing to operate with weaponry that they won't. I do like that Jason, though, isn't trying to kill them.
Yeah.
That he's got a certain code, and he's trying to violate. He wants them out of the way. He wants to discredit them, but it's not about murdering them. It's let's get these two back to headquarters and finish them. Do you think that he's going to kill them there?
No. He even said, that that'll take care of them. They won't. Let's see them try to get out of that with some dignity. He's put them in some way bound and gagged. Maybe I don't want to know. I don't know where he went with this. I'm hoping it's some spoofy type thing that's embarrassing and not something twisted. But you never know with Jason. So who knows what he did with them. He left them somewhere alive, and it's going to be humiliating for them, to get out of whatever the situation.
It's part of the branding thing, right? Let's make Batman and Robin look foolish would be, I think, his concept. Yeah,
I'm thinking, he doesn't want to kill them. He wants to destroy the Bat, not kill them. Because if you kill Dick Grayson, somebody else will put on the mantle. Right. Whether it's Tim Wayne, whether it's somebody completely else, someone will put on the mask. Someone will continue the legacy. He's got to humiliate them, break them, destroy the image and the reputation and just the very icon nature of Batman. It's kind of like what we're seeing General Lane do to Superman in his titles. He's not just trying to get rid of Superman. He's trying to turn the world against Superman. It's you can't just take out, think you can win if you just hurt them or if you kill them. They're an icon. They're something that goes beyond that. It's, they're beyond a man. They're a symbol. They're a belief. They're an ideology. They're Batman. So if you want to win, if you want to destroy this man, you have to destroy every single thing about him. And last thing you do is kill him.
Now, Sasha knows who Flamingo is. She knows the legend of Flamingo, at least. Because my papa and Uncle Lev once talked in whispers about a man they feared named Eduardo Flamingo. A good man who fought the mob until they cut his brain apart and took away everything human. That's her saying this, right?
Yeah.
They made him kill his wife, his children, and everyone and everything he ever loved. I mean, what would that do to somebody? I mean, Did you watch Heroes this week by any chance?
No.
Okay. I'll try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but Gabriel is faced with what Sylar was. And he has no memory of who Sylar is, but he's faced with that. And it just the terror of seeing, himself as the killer that he's been. And I'll leave it at that. But what I kind of connected with what was going on in Heroes in this particular segment with Flamingo, thinking to myself, what would that do to a guy doing that to your family? How would that make you snap? How much further would that take you down the depths? Not only did they alter him, but they made him kill everything that could possibly make him human, that could possibly make him hold back, that could possibly make him reconsider that course of being this king of killers, this ace of assassins that they're talking about. And he shoots Jason. I mean...
Yeah, headshot there. But unfortunately, I'm assuming the hood protected him. That thing can take the shot. But, yeah, he went for the headshot there, went for the kill.
I do like the style of this book when we get to the next issue, Bits, because you see Flamingo... we get to see that close-up of Flamingo in the top. But I always like that there's a couple of blurbs that kind of tease what could be happening next issue. And that style is something... I like that there's something unique about this book's look to other books.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of each book having its own kind of style, and I'd like to see more of this kind of... a stylized approach to a book and how it's presented. This is a book, I've liked this since issue 1. Now, let me ask you this. I remember the Quitely art initially was something that you had difficulty with. What did you think of the Philip Tan issues now?
I'm definitely digging this. It's the story and just where it's going, what we're seeing. I'm 100% into this and behind this.
Do you like rotating art teams? Because, it looks like we're going to just continually, by arc, have different art teams on the book. Obviously, it'll be all Grant Morrison writing. I'm kind of a fan of this because it seems like this to me didn't feel jarring from Quitely's art. I really enjoyed what Quitely did. It flowed real nicely into what Tan's doing in this book. So for me, the change in art, sometimes if you don't have the right art teams, it'll feel like a big jarring switch. This didn't feel like that to me. It felt like it honored what Quitely was doing, while Tan still got to be able to put his own spin on it. What was your take on that? Oh,
definitely. It was it's weird with me. As much as I do appreciate and love the art team, and as I'm getting on in years here, learning more, and I'm recognizing people's art schemes, I still, on my initial read through, do not. I didn't notice that there was an art change when when it happened. And I was sitting there, I'm reading, and then I'm about halfway through near the end of it, I'm like, hey, wow, was this a different artist? And I'm like, oh, yeah, it was. Oh, cool. So unless it's like somebody that I got the comic because of the artwork, I don't notice usually the art unless, initially. It takes me either the full issue or my second read through, or, sometimes like, part way through the issue, I can recognize going, hey, something's different here. So for me, it's... I don't know. I don't know if I have an eye for art or however it is. I get into the story. I read the story. If it's good art, if it's something that I enjoy, then it's not jarring for me.
I'm going DC's The Source blog a lot, so I noticed the art change right away, but I can't help but wonder if some of that wasn't due to the fact that I knew there was going to be different artists. Although I guess because I've been reading longer than you, I do tend to notice shifts in art. And I got to say, though, I felt that this artwork, and I got to say it's the colorist, too, because there's a lot of credit for keeping this feeling very much like the same book in tone. And I think that is a key, because the color scheme and the presentation of the atmosphere through that, definitely, it was Alex Sinclair on the colors, and he really did a very good job of keeping this book feeling like the same book all the way through. Let me ask you this. Did the Quitely art grow on you? Because we haven't really talked about how that wrapped up. Did it grow on you as the issues continued, or did you still have the same issues you had? Because I remember Frumpy, I think you said that his costume or something.
It did grow on me, but it wasn't to the point. I enjoyed this over that. I can definitely say I like this artwork, this art style, this representation of Batman a little bit better than that artwork.
Yeah, I think that's a difference in our approach to this book, because I liked the Quitely art right from the get-go. And that's not to say that you're wrong. I mean, art is one of those things where you just have different tastes, and I found this book beautiful and breathtaking right from the start. But that is just a different appearance. I was curious just to see if this was something that you latched onto it more. I think we should talk next about Batman. Jumping to the other Batman book. Actually, there's 3 Batman books, Streets of Gotham, which we probably won't talk about on this particular recording, but we will talk about Batman 691 next. I guess before we jump into that, though, do you have one that you prefer over the 2 right now? Or do you like the Batman and Batman and Robin?
That's a toughie, Oh, man, that's a toughie. I'm actually going to leaning towards Batman and Robin. And part of it is because of this Jason Todd story that's going on. I'm really digging that. Part of it is, I don't know.
You know what's got me in this one? Jason. I mean, not Jason. I'm sorry, Damian.
Yeah.
Damian is
like
really
Damian. He's
Damian, who I thought was a putz before, and he was supposed to be. He was written to be that. The kid's growing on me. Like, I honestly am to the point where when all is said and done, I don't know if that I want him to stop being Robin. I'm starting to really like the kid.
Yeah, and it's funny because as I'm saying this, I'm thinking back to Winnick's what Winnick is doing on Batman, and I'm like, I'm really liking this exploration of Dick Grayson as Batman, and so I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool too.
You know what? And maybe that's not a fair question because they're 2 very different books.
Yeah.
Because I think my whole Batman enjoyment right now, in fairness, is coming from the fact that when you read Batman and Robin, you read Batman, you read Streets of Gotham, they are 3 very different books that focus on 3 different concepts. I think Damian right now is really growing on me in Batman and Robin. I like seeing this kid. I like seeing his walls break down. But I like that. It's not like all of a sudden we've got Damian, like Damian's the hero that we all want him to be. Because even in the annuals, I agree with you about the maturity there, but we do see elements in the annuals where he's still, like there's that bit with him and Azrael where he forgets that they're supposed to be rescuing people. But Azrael remembers it. And Damian catches it like when Azrael points him back, like this is what we're supposed to be doing now. And we'll talk about the annuals, obviously, either if we don't get to it on this episode, we'll talk to it on the next part. But I thought that was interesting that when Fabian was constructing that story, he still kept Damian being Damian. He doesn't quite get it yet. He isn't that – you talked about that emotional attachment. It isn't quite there yet for people. And that's something I really like. Let's talk about 691.
Oh, definitely. Oh, man.
Winnick and Bagley on this one.
Yeah.
It's great to see Mark Bagley on the main title. I got to say, Winnick has been a home run writing this title for me because of the fact that you're right, that inner exploration of Dick Grayson. This is the book, to me, this very much feels right now like it's before what's currently going on in Batman and Robin. This is him coming to terms with being Batman right here.
Yeah, and this is obviously before Blackest Night. This is before a lot of this stuff currently going on. And one of the things I really digged about this was this issue answered the question that has been really nagging at me. And until I read this issue, I don't want to say it was something that was making me not like Dick Grayson as Batman, but it was something that was the big pink elephant sitting in the room that I wanted to see get addressed. And it's the fact that he is so different than Batman, the villains have to think this is a different guy. And this story arc really showed exactly how Dick Grayson can prove to people that he isn't a different guy. There's still only the one Batman. And I really ate that up, as especially having it be Harvey, Dent, who knows Batman so well, who knows Nightwing and Dick Grayson so well, that Dick could actually fool Harvey Dent. into thinking he was the original Batman.
You know what it is? It's all about confidence and believing that he's Batman. In this issue, we finally see him start believing that he's Batman. That's not to say that those little chinks in the armor aren't still there, and I think that's going to be interesting watching him continue to grow and to continue to gain confidence in himself in this role. But I do think it's something that is drastically different than Prodigal. I read Prodigal years ago when he took over for Bruce briefly. That always felt temporary. And in this particular case, it really does. Even though we know Bruce is going to come back, I don't know what that's going to look like. Right now, I'm really believing that he's taking over as Batman. He does not know that Bruce is out there. He's making this role his own. And it is something I'm getting a charge out of, just seeing him really adopt this. But, again, Two-Face recognizing he's fighting differently. There's a lack of confidence there. He's smiling more. These are all things that are just clues that, you're right, his villains are picking up on. I also like my annoyance at the end of last issue in 690 was, okay, he can get into the cave. And that so annoyed me that he could get, that Two-Face got into the cave. This issue so totally corrected that for me. He doesn't know where he's at. He knows he's in the Batcave. He has no idea where that location is. That's critical to me. The other important factor of that is he never finds out that he is under Wayne Manor. It's a critical point of this whole thing. I love that Bruce had defenses put up in a world where you've got magic, where you've got aliens, where you've got people with powers of teleportation and things like that. He would use people like Zatanna and other people involved in the occult, like Jason Blood and things like that, to help him put up guards against a magic attack or a teleportation attack or people trying to find him through that method. It so totally makes sense, and it added another layer to the whole Batman mythos for me. And I thought that was great because it does make sense that he would pull in those resources. He would find a way to protect himself against that. It's great detective work. It's pulling in the people that you know and using them to build up a defense. It's the strategist that is Batman, counting on trying to account for everything and not knowing what everything might be, but knowing that, hey, somebody could try what Harvey's trying right here. And because Bruce is gone, that put this place into vulnerability. Now, here's my question. With the fact that they're now yanking everything out of the cave, and I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, we can jump back to talk about the rest of the issue, but with everything that they're pulling out of the cave and everything, does the cave still have this protection? Because right now, Barbara Gordon is using this cave as a base of operations. So is there still that protection there, or is she in danger of being discovered here?
I don't know. I don't know if Barbara is going to be in the cave for much longer. If they're pulling everything out, I'm taking it that everything is coming out. Computers, access to the manor. It's going to be exactly how Bruce found it.
Now,
empty, dark, and alone.
I guess here's my problem right now, though. When are you taking Batgirl as happening with her? Because I'm taking it as after this as well.
I was initially saying afterwards, but now I don't know completely because really, if you look at when Spoiler first put on the costume, when Spoiler first started acting, it was when Tim just first left. It's when Dick first became Batman because we didn't really have the solid, confident Batman. So I'm taking it that there's it's kind of a limbo thing going on right now.
I think a lot of that we'll have to see as we find out more with what Barbara's doing, because the cave does look pretty sparse and empty when she's operating in it. So I guess that was kind of my question mark on the whole thing is, when does that take place? We'll have to see.
Yeah, because I couldn't see them leaving it defenseless for Barbara.
Well, I don't think they know she's operating there, though.
Yeah, because Barbara
that's
called,
true. That's true.
Barbara called and asked, "Hey, do you still keep the key in the thing?" "Oh no, we keep it now. I think in the planter or whatever."
Right.
Whatever the funny line they had, but yeah. So they know Barbara's operating in there. I think.
But they know what she's. Do they? They don't know what she's doing though.
Come on, when she's asking to get access to the cave, they know what she's doing.
No, but what I'm saying is they don't know what she's doing with Batgirl. They don't know that yet. Like they don't. I mean, we've got an issue coming. I mean, that's in the solicitations. We've got an issue coming where there's going to be a confrontation finally between them and Batgirl. So what that's going to look like, I can't imagine them. Do you think Dick Grayson would sanction her staying as Batgirl? Would that work, or will this be something that will be a point of confrontation? I don't know.
On one hand, I would like to think that Dick would, trust Barbara's judgment enough to know, okay, if she's saying she's ready and Barbara's going to sit there and, keep an eye on her, all right, I'm going to I'm not going to fight this. But on the other hand, I could see, when you get two people who had just that, the love affair, the relationship, the friendship, the partnership, the various levels of, dealings those two have had, they can push each other's buttons really quickly.
Oh yeah.
And it could very easily be, Dick could say, no, I don't think this is a good idea, and Barbara's like, hey, you can't tell me what to do. You don't own me. I don't see a ring on this finger, or I could see.
But wait, I'll be honest with you though. Right, hold on. Even if she had a ring on the finger, Barbara Gordon's strong enough,
right?
That wouldn't change her being her and what she believes in. A great example is Green Arrow, Black Canary right now. Yeah. We're seeing two characters that butt heads all the time, even though there is a ring on the finger. So I mean, and arguably, they push their buttons even more now that they're married. So I don't know. It's an interesting little. I'm curious to see what that looks like, what that storytelling is. Because you're right, Dick knows she's Oracle. So obviously they know she's operating as Oracle in there because she went to the cave so she could have a better computer access.
I see more of it setting up a new location for Oracle in Gotham. The Batcave was just a temporary thing. There's going to be a new watchtower or a new Oracle cave or however it's going to be. It's not going to be run out of her apartment where she was having, power issues and connectability and.
So you don't think it's to keep the Batcave in play?
I don't think the Batcave is going to be in play. I think the Batcave is empty and done. That way, if anybody other magic user pops in, they're popping into an empty, deserted cave. They'll be like, whoa. Okay, Batman's not here anymore. Let's find out where he is.
But doesn't that still leave Wayne Manor?
Not if you seal up everything.
How are you going to do that? You'd have to basically blow up. You wouldn't. I mean, those.
Too bad they don't know any superhero. Too bad they don't know any nutty humans that can move Earth. Oh wait, they do, don't they?
See, and I don't see them going to that. I don't see them doing that.
I think that'll be all off-camera stuff where. They could very easily find people who could seal up the path, or even just if he is Batman, he has the intelligence and the resources.
So
he can figure out a way very easily.
You're reading that completely differently than I am because I'm totally taking it that the Batgirl sequence took place after this, and that Barbara is using what's left of the deserted cave because that equipment is still there. And she's reactivating it, and probably was not is wiped, and she's using those resources that I'm sure all of Dick's probably had, and Alfred probably had that thing wiped, and she's using the fact that those computers are there, and I'm sure she's got access to servers from all over the place. So for her to reboot that machine and make it useful would be not such a big problem. I don't know.
That is how I'm reading it. That I'm reading it that stuff took place before this, and then the next issue maybe we'll see her moving to a new location.
Okay,
that's how I read it.
Okay,
but
and that's we don't know yet, so that'll be interesting to see where that because it is funny. Based on time-wise, when that happens, that drastically changes what actually was going on with her. So we'll see. And I want to have Vin on, and I would like to do a whole Batgirl discussion, so we'll do that soon to do something really in-depth about Batgirl. But anyway, I want to jump back to talking about Batman and the fight with Two-Face. I thought it was interesting because this costume, I never thought this costume would actually really make an appearance, and yet here it has. But I loved that it was in a dream sequence.
Yeah, it was he was hallucinating.
It was a hallucination.
Thank you.
With hallucinogens.
Hey, come on. Cut me some slack. I'm having a bad day, all right? Give me a break here.
You're forgetting what show this is.
Yeah, I really dig the fact that it wasn't actual real and he was imagining it, and that was just a cool story element. But that is just such a sweet looking costume, though. I'm just looking at the cover right now and you see him there, and that was just like, that is just an awesome, dark, evil Batman.
I did like when Harvey was looking through the stuff in the Batcave and, saw the cowl there from Bruce and just had this idea that, especially when he looked at this whole idea that the Batcave was this poetic place. It's dark, beautiful. This is where he lived. But now he's gone, and this joint is closed for business. It was something for him. Remember, Harvey had that relationship with Batman initially where, I don't want to say he was in awe of him, but he looked up to him before he became Two-Face. This was a colleague, a trusted colleague who he looked at as a way to change Gotham, to be an agent of change like Harvey wanted to be as well. So now all of a sudden to be in this place and to see that he did have a cave, a bat cave, and a base of operations like this, and to be in this place of his former opponent, but also his former friend, to have that duality there's a duality to that relationship that was there, because there is a respect. He even took over for him for a time.
Yeah,
in 52.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're not really. It wasn't brought up and wasn't mentioned, but it is still there. It's out there to just. You mentioned how just that level of respect and just how he knows that there's something more here. This isn't who he was and what's going on here. I liked seeing just. This wasn't just about killing Batman or taking out the new Batman. This was about, taking down this imposter, this bat fake.
I like this idea that he'd been hiring teleporters for years.
Yeah.
Really just trying to find ways to get into Batman's base and...
Well, it shows that Harvey's not just, Harvey is an intelligent man. He has, various degrees. He understands the way of law enforcement. He doesn't understand the investigative process, just like Batman does. There are a lot of similarities between Harvey and Batman. A lot of people will say that, Joker is the anti-Batman, and there's strong argument for it. Joker is, even granted he's complete psychotic, but there is still the intelligence in the Joker. But Harvey is also kind of an anti-Batman. We're seeing what could have happened to Bruce had he gone down the wrong path. This is very much a character type of personality that Bruce Wayne could have developed after watching his parents die. And that's something I really like about the villain, about Harvey Two-Face, just about how and who he is. And it's
why is he so obsessed with, because the basic premise of this is he has been watching Dick for a while and really trying to come to the conclusion that this guy is not Batman. And not only does he want to prove that he's not Batman, but he desperately wants to know where the real Batman is. Why?
I think it's part of that whole, he is, Batman is his, he's a Batman guy. He's a Batman rogue. Mm-hmm. Without Batman, what is he? There is always the duality nature of Harvey Dent. If there is no Batman, is there a Two-Face? Can I have the one without the other? And it's a sick and twisted symbiotic relationship for Harvey. And
see, I see that more being the relationship with the Joker, though. I almost wonder if, when you talk about the duality of Harvey, I do think part of the problem is there is that Harvey Dent there's the evil Harvey Dent who wants to destroy Batman, but then there's the good Harvey Dent who, I guess to a certain extent you're right, who needs there to be a Batman, but not for his existence as much as because he still needs to believe in that part of Gotham. I don't know.
See, here's one of the things that I I kind of have a weird, and it may not be a weird theory on some of the Bat Rogues. Mm-hmm. Each one is the opposite, the opposite of one of Batman's.
You're trying to say
traits.
Antithesis.
The antithesis to one of Batman's stronger traits. You look at the Riddler. That's obviously the deductive abilities, the deductive reasoning, the investigation type thing, that mindset. Penguin, I take it as the wealthy Bruce Wayne. What would have happened had the wealthy Bruce Wayne kind of let himself get a little corrupted? He could have very easily turned into a Penguin type, mob boss type thing. You got Harvey Dent. He is the Justice, version of, and what happens if the Justice gets perverse, it shifts into Harvey Dent. And then you have the Joker, who is, and I don't know if it's the reason or the character or just the heart and soul of Batman twisted is what the Joker becomes. So each of these villains, really, they need their Batman. They need the opposite. Now, Penguin is actually shifted.
He is the chaos to Batman's order?
Yeah.
If you want to put it that way, because the Joker's complete and utter chaos.
Yeah.
I mean, going off I'm buying into what you're saying here. I'm like, oh, it's a very cool way to analyze the whole thing. So, I mean, would Joker be that then?
Yeah, Joker definitely be the chaos to his order.
Okay, this is really...
And the Harvey is the perverse justice to what Bruce is, just Bruce's sense of and feeling of justice.
This whole bit, this is one of my favorite sequences. Wait, where did you... No, Harvey, I don't think I will wait. You have broken into my house. And if you know me so well, you must know I don't tolerate burglars. And I love that when Harvey's shooting, you see that sarcophagus, whatever you want to call that, the tribute to Bruce, his own little station right there with his cowl. You're right, Harvey. This is the inner sanctum. And there's no place on earth where I'm more powerful. You're trapped with me. And I love how he brings the penny crashing down on him. Just a powerful moment. I know it's hard to believe that I could change, Dent. It must be impossible for someone like you. You're stuck in amber, obsessed with routine, split down the middle, clean or scarred. But it's not all light and darkness, Harvey. There's gray. You can't see that. I'm not like you, Harvey. I can change, but I am still Batman. And it does the comeback. It is you, you son of a... That moment, the power of Dick Grayson in that moment, he took on, he was channeling his dad, his mentor. At that moment, he was becoming, the son was becoming the father. And it is interesting to see in that moment, you are raised by that man. There is an influence of Bruce Wayne in Dick Grayson. He was raised by him. There are elements, I get it from my dad. Yeah, I'm very much my own person, but there are elements of my father in me. There are elements of my mother in me. But there are, influences of my friends and things like that. And that's why Dick Grayson has, his time with the Teen Titans and all that has made him a very unique person. He's a different man. But there is Bruce Wayne in him, and we see it here. Wow, was that cool. That was great writing.
Oh yeah, and we definitely, I like seeing not just the physical fight, but the mental fight, and it had to happen this way. And I love the fact that Dick acknowledged to Alfred, hey, thanks for doing that. If you had just tranquilized him, he would have left here thinking that I wasn't Batman. We had to teach him, and we had to show him that I am Batman. I ate that up with that, once again, a really sweet Alfred moment. I so love seeing Alfred and Dick, just their interaction as much, if not more so, than when Alfred and Bruce reacted. It's a different reaction here. It's a different interaction here, and it's something I'm really, really enjoying.
But it's one of the things I like, too, is you've got Alfred involved, who is an expert at creating the illusion of Batman. Because we've talked about before how, just like Superman, Batman has that duality. Is it Bruce Wayne? Is it Batman? it falls somewhere in the middle, the real man, because Batman itself is the show. There is a show element to Batman that's for, the public, for the villains, for things like that. And these two are finding a new way to craft that show element so people know this is the same guy. And that's the whole point of this. They need them to know this is the same guy. It doesn't work if they think it's a new man under the cowl, because it's pointless then. You might as well just stay Nightwing. In this case, they needed to prove that and to pull it off on Two-Face, to make him believe it the way that the two of them did, to craft it. And they took a huge risk there because, Dick got shot with the whole thing too. They pulled that off in such a way to really pull the wool over Harvey's eyes. And I love seeing Alfred in the cowl too. That was so cool. It was a great moment. I really enjoy these aspects of it. I also liked seeing here that we got to see Black Mask with Harvey, and to see that Harvey has that certain element of him where he will not work for somebody else. He will not become a lackey of a Black Mask. That is a line that he will not cross. And he's willing to leave Gotham to do that. So I'm going to be curious to see where Harvey goes from here.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I like the fact that Black Mask made him the offer.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't try to strong-arm Harvey. He didn't try to, force him to you will, be assimilated. It's, he recognized that someone of Harvey's level, you can't force him to, follow you. He will find a way to double-cross you, and it will be a double whammy to you. Best thing to do is let him go.
And to treat him with respect, that if you can get him to work for you, he is a powerful ally that in many ways could be somebody who would only enhance Black Mask. So he played it very smart. I am dying to know who this Black Mask is. Is it somebody we've seen before? Is it somebody completely new? Who is this guy? I've got to think it's got to be a player that we know but don't expect.
Yeah.
That to me, it seems only logical, because for it not to be a shocking reveal, it would almost be a waste at this point, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, just who could it be, though? That's the whole question.
Is it somebody somehow related to the original Black Mask, or is it some player that we've seen in the Batman universe before? I don't know. It is very interesting. Because, from Blackest Night, Batman, we know it can't be the original Black Mask.
Right.
So who is it? I don't know. I'm very curious to see how this is going to turn out. But that bit with him and Harvey I thought was fantastic. And then we got led into that bit with Alfred and Dick where they talked about the cave and how they really needed to shut things down. I'm curious to see if that thing was, if they did shut the whole place down and there's nothing left there for Oracle, and if you're right about that. What do you think about the reveal at the end that Bruce left a quote-unquote data key and was hiding a secret about their murder?
Now, here's the thing. Did they ever solve the murder? His parent did, because that was something that from the Batman Blackest Night, they had we actually see the killer, in Blackest Night format, and they used that. And I don't remember them ever saying they solved the murders. I'm wondering if this here is where they reveal who actually murdered.
The origin's been told so many times, but at least my recollection of what the origin is now, and I got to be honest with you, I'm not sure which origin we're going with here, but my understanding was that they did track down the killer, and Dick had to make the choice of whether or not to kill him. And except I've read so many different versions of it, because, I'm thinking of two. I read Dark Victory, which had a variation on the origin of Robin there. So I don't know if I'm getting I don't know what's considered canon in his origin right now, because I've read so many different versions of it. I'm going to have to look that up and really figure that out. Actually, hang on one second. I'll look it up now. Yeah, because the Flying Graysons were killed by a mafia boss, and they saw that happen. So I don't know if now they're adding to it, or if maybe there was something more to it than what was done before. I don't know. And it looks like it was Tony Zuko, the crime boss. So I don't know.
Okay.
And that's the way I remember it. I just didn't know now if... I wonder if now they're adding another twist to it, or if there's another player that's involved to it. Or if somehow this all links back to the new Black Mask. If maybe that's where they're going with this. I don't know. Where this ties going to be.
That'd be actually a really interesting thing to do with that.
Because who is Black Mask? Could it be something to do with the original killer? And this is now personal.
Yeah, well, yeah. See, though, part of me, I don't know. I'll have to read. If that's the way they go, I will have to read the story, to see whether I like that. Because part of me would be like, you didn't really need to tie him in unless they tell just this great story and how they tied in. I just threw that out there at the top of my head, so I don't know that I necessarily am sold on that or that I even particularly like that idea myself. I'm just kind of trying to figure out, okay, where are they going with this right now? Because now we found this. It was a murder that was previously solved, and why are we opening this up again? Where is it going? So I'm curious to see where it's going. I got to be honest with you. I'm excited for Tony Daniel because I've liked his artwork on it. I'm anxious to see what he's going to do on Batman, but I've liked Winnick's writing on this book so much that it's going to be interesting to see how happy I am with the shift. Because I liked Battle for the Cowl, but it's hard to compare because Battle for the Cowl was really meant to be a transition mini to really set the events in motion to give us a new Batman. So then that these writers could then use Dick Grayson and go in the direction they wanted to go. So, and I enjoyed so much what Winnick did when we finally got to see Dick Grayson in the Cull. I think because we wanted to see that bang and pop so much that we haven't had a chance to see Tony Daniel work with this Batman. So I'm going to be curious to see if I enjoy him as much as I've been enjoying what Winnick's been doing. Because Winnick's been stellar. This has been a great book. Yeah, I know, and it's funny because when you first asked me before, which are you liking more, I did go with that because I did go with Batman and Robin because of Damian is such a really cool character, and I'm liking seeing their dynamic. But now it's as we talk about Batman, I'm thinking, no, actually, I do like Batman over, I do like Batman over Batman and Robin because we are getting this cool, just this birth of a hero. It's even a continuation of his, his growth and his maturity into the role as he becomes Batman. So.
Hello, Sean and Jim.
Are you brave enough to conquer rebels?
Sure.
Because I'm really anxious to talk to you about this Rebels annual. I called you up and I said, Jim, we haven't talked really about Rebels except casually on the show. And this annual came out and I was really blown away by this. But I know we talked casually, and I don't know if we even aired that portion of the conversation. We had talked with Mandy and we were just chatting about books. And I remember you and Mandy saying you were kind of on the fence about Rebels as a series as far as whether or not you were liking it or not. It's a series that I think has been getting better and better as it's been going on, and there's been a great build to it, and I'm really into it now. I'm current on the book. Issue 9 just came out, which has Captain Comet and Adam Strange joining into this whole thing with Starro. But I know when you and I talked about it, you said you're behind a couple issues on the book. And so I said to you, Jim, read the annual, because I do think the annual is really accessible for anybody. So if you're a fan of Starro, the whole Starro concept in the DC Universe, this kind of explains and reinvents Starro without throwing anything that's been told before out the window. And I thought that was kind of clever in how they did it. But they made Starro much more intimidating. Now, that's my opinion of this, though. What did you think of this annual, Jim? Because I know, where are you at as far as Rebels? How did this annual make you feel? Just give us kind of an overview on where you're at as far as this whole series is.
Okay, well, Rebels is kind of was. It's still, the definitely chopping block. And part of it, and I don't want to say it's because of a bad story or anything I'm disliking, because I wasn't. It just, I had no passion towards it. You know, for me, when I read a comic book, I want to start thinking 3 pages beyond the story. I want to start thinking, okay, well, what about this? What about that? Ooh, this may happen. Or put myself in the book. How would I deal if I was sitting there, you know, hanging out with the Secret Six? How would I deal if I was sitting there hanging out with Wonder Woman, or if I was in the Batcave? You know, I actually put myself in the book and think, you know, beyond what's on the page. With Rebels, I'd read it. I enjoyed it. I was like, oh, okay, that's entertaining. And then I put it away, and I wouldn't think about it again. It wasn't something that had me thinking 3 steps beyond. So I really, it was kind of on the chopping block for me. And I was, you know, I'm like, oh, I'll see what, you know, give it through. And then I saw the annual, and I was like, okay, I'll go with the annual. I'll pick up the annual and see that. And I hadn't read it. It was on the back stack. I didn't get to it because I'm still a couple issues behind on Rebels. And then you said, oh, read it. And I tell you, when I read this was a great story. This was something I really enjoyed. And Starro isn't somebody, I know the basics of him. You know, like when they
this
talk
is
about,
new. This
yeah.
is all, just so you know, this variation with this guy as Starro now. This is new. So I'm just saying, as far as what you don't know about Starro,
Right.
This is a good launching point for people. If you aren't familiar with Starro at all, I think this annual is great for that. But if you're familiar with it, it totally brings in everything that we know about Starro, the Starro concept previously into this. So I thought it was a great way to do that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh, no. Go on. Yeah, and as I said, I knew basic stuff very little, and as I'm going through, I'm learning who this guy is. I started getting into, I'm starting to get into his head, but this issue really had the stuff that I like in, you know, a comic book. It had some really cool action fight sequences. It had some funny moments that, well, I don't know if they were intended to be funny, but I chuckled. You know, we see what happens when you forcibly remove a Starro from someone's face, and that's, you know, with Despero, when he's like, "Oh, here, I will reward your, you know, your face." As he rips it off and rips off half the guy's face, he goes, yeah, never mind. You know, I chuckled when that happened. You know, throughout this, we see just this really powerful villain who, you know, comes to be, and exactly where he comes from was something kind of like, ooh, that's a nice little way of dealing with it. But this is something that kind of reinvigorated me to read the Rebel stuff. You know, I haven't had a chance to, because I just read this literally last night as I was getting ready for recording. But you know, tomorrow I'm going to pull out my Rebels and I'm going to read those and actually see what happens in the series.
Did you get from this what I did? Because I was funny when I read this annual. It blew me away. Which I was like, wow. I don't know. I mean, it's okay if you didn't. I read this and I put it down. I was like, wow. And that was totally what my feeling was after reading this annual.
Yeah, definitely. This was got me into just this concept, just this in this universe. And as I said, it has reinvigorated me for Rebels. Now I'm going to go through and read, and this has definitely locked me in for a couple more story arcs before I make a final decision on Rebels. But it's no longer an easy decision for me. You know,
let me ask you this: if you hadn't read this, how much further would you have gone with that book?
Maybe 12 issues.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think we just pre-ordered issue 11
on
DCBS. So I ordered that one, but to be honest, I didn't remember if I had ordered. I was like, did I pull the plug after 10 or am I going to 12? And I looked like, okay, I already ordered it. Okay, I'll go to 12. And I was actually thinking that 12 may be the end for Rebels for me. But this annual really kind of got me jazzed. I'm looking forward to seeing just what's going to happen in this universe. And tomorrow I'm going to grab my issues of Rebels and read the things. I actually will probably start at 1 and reread everything again, just so everything is fresh and boom, and knock it out that way. But yeah, this is definitely one of those stories that I was like, yeah, this is a really cool story. I liked, the build-up of the different chapters and just how it was going through. And when we finally get the end picture, of who and what this Starro, is.
One of the things I liked about how this is crafted, and please correct me along the way, Jim, because I've been reading Rebels and I've been enjoying it. Like I said, it's been a book that's had a nice build for me where I enjoyed it in the beginning, but I was kind of like you. I was like, I'm not through the roof. I stuck with it because I like Tony Bedard's writing. So I was thinking, I'm like, okay, I've got confidence that this is building to a big story. So my relationship with reading this writer's previous work at Valiant and things like that really just had me saying, okay, I know when he gets into the space stuff that there's going to be a payoff to this. So I'm going to stick with it and see what Tony's really going to do with this. And it has paid off for me. It has been something with this that I really enjoyed. One of the things I do like about this, and I don't know, did it help you? Those first 2 prologue pages, I thought really did a nice job of, as a primer, telling us where we're at in the Rebels universe right now. So I think somebody who's never read Rebels before could pick this up and gets kind of an overview of, okay, here's what's going on now. Are you, because I know you're in a different spot in Rebels. Did this kind of bring you up to speed?
Yeah. It was enough from what I saw. I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember seeing, these people. Okay, now I know what's going on, kind of. And it was actually part of the reason that I want to go back and read it, because I know it's a lot more fleshed out than what we have here. I want to see exactly what was laid out.
And it was good because it was just 2 pages in the beginning, but just kind of gives you an overview. This is where the Rebels universe is at. But then chapter 1 goes to the doom that came to Kalanor. And I was thinking about something like Kalanor, where do I know that from? And it dawned on me, I'm like, oh my gosh, Despero. I did not see this going where it did in a million years. This chapter was a great way to start off an annual. Because, boy, if you're going to put Starro on the map as a bad dude, this is have him go up against Despero. And again, you saw, like you said, you saw that what happens when a Starro is ripped off your face. Basically we see Despero, who is there basically, quote unquote, comforting this guy. But the only reason why he's doing that is because he totally, when the guy dies, he just kind of moves on. Never mind. Just so he rips the guy's face off with the Starro and just kind of moves on like nothing happens. But then take it one step further. Despero, the Starros try to attack Despero and take him over. And we get to see just how powerful he is, because he instantly overcomes that. He is not taken as a part of this hive mind. But it was a great way through this to introduce just why Starro is so terrible and why he is so, because he comes down and immediately is not impressed at all with Despero. He likes the idea of having a impressive opponent, and he's constantly striving for that. But immediately when Despero connects with him and tries to do mental battle with him, he sees that he's not fighting one man. He is fighting every single planet that he's taken over, every single person that he's taken over. These are all interconnected hive minds through the Starros. He is pulling power from that. All of their will, all of their desire, all of their strength, he is utilizing as a force for himself. So this is a guy who is really basically will never stop. And he is, how do you stop somebody who is in an embodiment of billions and billions and billions? Billions probably isn't strong, trillions. How do you stop that in one person?
The line that the Daughter of the Storm has, as she's the narrator, Despero ruled a planet. My master rules 9 galaxies, hundreds of trillions of conquered minds. I was just like, wow, okay, this is going to be something powerful, because Despero can go toe to toe with Superman. He's got some. He takes on and really puts the league through the ringer. And this guy just crumbled him without breaking a sweat.
Their strength is his strength. His thoughts are their thoughts. But that's also a symbiotic relationship, right? Because couldn't he pull then from them their knowledge, use that as strategy, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, this is just, talk about somebody, if anybody could put up a fight, can't he utilize that then? It's crazy. And it's just to see the look. When do you see a look of fear on Despero's face? But I thought he's humbled him. Maybe, Despero is going to be a prisoner or something like that. He chopped his head off.
Yeah. That shocked me. Because I'm like, wait a minute, that's Despero. He's a pretty cool villain to have in your back pocket to pull out every so often. They just chopped his head off. He ain't coming back from that one.
Especially after what we saw with him in Trinity, it was like, whoa. Another character that I liked, because throughout this, then we jump back to like present day, or not really present day as much as we get to see like little segments that take us into the next story, and we get to see that Starro at one point in time did have a star on his face, and yet he somehow overcame that.
Well, if you want to say he overcame it.
Well, I mean, yeah,
he had his face ripped off.
We'll talk at the end about what that actually looks like and why it happened, but it was something that really the Starro Queen had no idea was coming. And I like this concept that there are many Starro Queens and how that happened and what they did, how they were like an infection almost that came across a place, when they take over. We'll talk more about that. I want to talk about this Astrolid Storm Daughter, who was a god. She was a god on her world. And I mean, when you look at all that, I'm like, okay, I'd kind of like to live there. I mean, she makes everything beautiful. She takes desolation and brings life to it. Just basically, I could see being on this planet and just being like, wow, isn't this the coolest place in the world? A child is dying from like a sickness and she heals them. Why wouldn't you want to live there? Why wouldn't you want to support that? But also how that, makes you vulnerable and open to attack. Because why would you build an army when you've got this goddess who's providing everything? You don't work. You don't provide for yourself because she makes everything happen for you. So it does make you weaker. And while there's an attraction to that in the sense that, wow, this is paradise, it's perfection, but yet it would make you somehow diminished because you don't earn anything for yourself. It's all just handed to you. It is something that, like I would love to win the lottery and just have millions of dollars and all that. I mean, how great would that be? But I can't help but think to myself, how much better of a person am I because I have to work for what I have? What does that do for me that every day I have to make decisions, at my job? I have to have a certain code. I have to have a certain code of conduct. I have a certain way of operating because of that. What would I be like if I didn't have to have that? And that becomes an interesting dynamic and a dilemma when you think about those things. We all want, who wouldn't want superpowers or to be able to hang out with somebody who is a godlike, person who could just give you everything you wanted and make sure you never got sick. You never had to worry about taking care of yourself. Would you exercise in her world? Why would you need to?
Yeah, because once you start having the medical problems, once your body starts falling, hey, help me out here. Oh, okay, bump, zap, and
she's the ultimate in universal health care. You don't have to garden. You don't have to work for food. She provides. So what would that do to a race, a group of people? It sounds great on paper, but there is a downside to having, seemingly omnipotent power, to what it does to the people that you're working with. Where do you draw the line? And that was the thing that I found most interesting, because their planet then is attacked by the Starros, and she's doing everything she can to heal her people. Nonstop, she's doing everything she can to help them to survive and to resurrect them and to keep them going until, basically, in order for her to really confront him, she has to pull all that power back, and basically commit genocide, destroy her planet in order to accomplish her goal. And she learns a horrible truth from that, and what is the price? What would that do to you to be omnipotent, to be like this all-giving person that's worshipped by, because she was worshipped by everybody, and and she was nice, she was kind, she protected them. She wasn't. An interesting contrast to Despero, for example, who, never mind, she didn't feel that way about the loss of her people. You know, when people got hurt, she genuinely wanted to care for them. But more like, it was almost like they were pets.
Oh, yeah, these are definitely, well, her children she even used a couple of times, leave my children alone. This was, a motherly, guardian, just the benefactor. It was just, she was, we thrown out God, and they called her a God, but even it was, I want to say beyond that, because it was, mother is just the great, that mother image just keeps popping in my head with her, and she basically sacrificed her children to get enough power to blast this guy, and it wasn't even enough power then. And I just love the fact that she's just like, what the heck did I just do? I just killed everybody, and it did absolutely nothing.
This is funny, though. It shows just the way that he wanted her under his rule. He wanted her as a general, as somebody that he could rely on. And he totally did this. He totally manipulated this. It's just because he says right here, you killed them. No, Storm Daughter, you did. They should be alive, blissful subjects of Starro. But what you see in me offends you. It was your righteous indignation that sealed your people's fate. No, you're wrong. There is no wrong. There is no right. Come find me once you understand this. And it really is, he had to let her destroy her own people. He had to let her try to overcome, it was one of those things. Either she submitted or she gives up everything and ultimately she was going to submit either way. She was in a catch-22 because he got her to submit regardless. So if she'd given up the people to him, he would have gotten what he wanted. The other way, he gets what he wants. And it's just so crazy. And the visual change in her as... Yeah,
she darkens up a little bit. She puts on the war paint. She's getting ready to go. And I even like how they're saying how she's, as she's doing this, she's coming up with schemes. She's going to take him down. She's going to avenge her people. And every time she goes through the plan, every time she goes through the schemes, she realizes she's coming up short. And it's not enough, and it's not going to do the deal, and she doesn't have enough power to stop him, and she knows that. And I just really just like seeing just that final, piece of the puzzle in her just click, and she's like, I give. That's it. You win. And, she's now his loyal servant, and I truly believe she is a loyal servant of Starro. She's not going to double-cross Starro, even if some powerful being comes along that looks like maybe they could take out Starro. She's already broken. Her will's already broken. That's it. She's done.
I like that she reflects on this as she's talking to him. Because we see her, and that's present day that she's zipping back to. I shall report back with the High Vanguard's Council, and we're seeing her present day meeting with these people to continue on this current storyline. So she still reflects on how did I wind up here, and who wouldn't? What she's gone through, the trauma. Could you imagine being the last person of the planet you were on? Could you imagine being the last human? Everyone died. But not everyone didn't just die. Everyone died because of your actions, because of your own, because your sense of morality you couldn't let go of. And that's what it is there. He's saying everything you believed is wrong. Everything that is your code is wrong. Because you have this code, you set them up for this. If you had let it go, if you had just joined me, they would be happy and alive in peace as a part of this hive mind. Instead, you sacrificed them because of your morality. What would that do to you? We all have moral codes. You are giving up your entire being in joining him. And that's something that's what gives him ultimate power. That he can convince you to do that.
I like this final line that they have with her going through her decision to resist the will of Starro cost her everything she fought to defend. She has since made certain no one else repeats her mistake. That is also another big thing why she's doing this. She doesn't want anybody else to suffer the way she suffered. She doesn't want their people to suffer. She actually is buying into the blissful enslavement by Starro.
Yeah, and that she believes it now, which is interesting. So she believes that people would be at peace by just joining up with him, by being a part of that. And she believes that's right. That is interesting how she has totally changed now. She sees his point of view. This High Vanguard chapter was interesting because not only do we get to meet that he's got a command, a group of generals, whatever you want to call them, and these are people who willingly have submitted to him. So while they all have stars attached to them and they're in their own ways part of Starro. Now, that is interesting. With them being able to operate freely, does that mean that he can connect with them, but they don't pull from the hive mind? Jim, how are you reading that?
I'm reading it's the star because it's on each of them. It's on their back. It's not on the face. It's not on the mind. It's not on the brain. It's kind of a connection, communication that he can pull. He can pull from them all he wants, but they are separate entities in their mind.
But that he could shut them down any instant with them if he wanted to?
I think he could.
It's interesting to see that. Now, this Smite character is really interesting because talk about an interesting character study here because he's the scourge of the stars. I mean, we open with him in just one of the most brutally cruel segments because, again, great job of not showing something. These people on this planet are all tied at the stake with their babies in the middle. And you see him pulling up a huge hammer. He raised atrocity to an art form. In the word, the man was evil. He was so inventive in his cruelty. He had no interest in conquest, only suffering. So he didn't care about them being defeated by him. He didn't care about them becoming his subjects. He just cared about being cruel and causing them to suffer. I have no doubt that it's even possible after what he did, he let them live.
Yeah, probably. Oh, yeah, just, destroy. He just, that is just, that is the ultimate thing to do to any parent. They always say how parents don't want to outlive their children. Well, not only these parents outlive their children, they watch them die in this horrific fashion. And these aren't even children. These are babies. These are the little,
And taking it even one step further, I agree with you. These are totally their parents, so that takes it to a whole new level for them. This would scar me for life to be tied at the stake. Not my kids, watching any kids this happen to. I mean, that was the interesting thing about it. I was like, you know what? These aren't even my kids, and I'm having a little trouble seeing this because they don't show you what happens, and I think that's even worse because it pops into your head, and I'm like, oh, I so totally see what happened there, and I want it gone. And just a wonderful construction of just an evil, despicable villain. And if this guy's only a general, what is the main man like? And it shows how, I mean, the way Starro toyed with this guy, because he basically is humbled by Starro, humbled by this man. So he becomes, in many ways, Starro holds back to do an experiment with him to see if he could become truly good, if he could truly go against his nature, kind of like what happened before in the beginning with Astrid, or whatever her name, Astrid, I think it was, Storm Daughter. Kind of like what he did there, but now he's doing it in a very different way. He's taking this infinitely evil creature and making him change his nature to go in the complete opposite direction to, the point where he is rescuing people. He's saving people. He has turned people who would have given him the execution for his crimes, for how cruel and evil he was, to the point where they believe in him, would team with him. Look at him as their Superman. He has become their Superman.
Yeah, and I love the scene where they show him saving the lives of little children that are about to get crushed by this big boulder. He's like catching it and saving the day. And it was just a beautiful buildup because the heroes of this world, lashed out against him and fighting, and they were just all four of them against him, and he was holding his own. And then when he comes to them, they naturally don't trust him. But he slowly starts winning their trust as he is legitimately fighting with them to take down Starro the Conqueror. He recognizes, I can't do this alone. We need to work together. And slowly a team and a friendship starts growing.
His morality changed, though.
Mm-hmm.
So take it to another level. It's not even just that he's partnering with them due to convenience. He was so humbled by what Starro did to him that it completely changed his own sense of morality, where he, like you said, saving the children was a crucial difference. He didn't have to do that. As a battle of convenience, he could have just said, I'm going to team with you so we can take this guy down, and I'm only doing it for convenience. I'll have your back, you have mine. But that doesn't, why would that apply to the kids? They don't, they aren't helping him in his battle. He literally did that as a heroic act. He became like their Superman in this group, turning them around so completely that they viewed him in a different light. They viewed him like their leader. I mean, you see them when they're flying into battle. He's charging out into the front. They're flying behind him to have his back because they believe in him now. And that change was something that, wow, this Starro he did it with somebody who was totally good, turned them in a completely different direction, took somebody who was totally evil, completely changed their sense of morality just because he could, and then lets it all go.
Yeah.
And just says, okay, now I'm going to stop holding back and watch what I can do to you now. So now I took away what you had before when you were all evil and cruel. Now that you're all good, I'm taking it away again. And I love that there was this sense of, did the people, did his partners, Smite's crew, his Justice League, so to speak, did they give up their life for him when he had to kill them? Or did he just cruelly destroy them? I don't know. Because he did survive. He made the decision to kill them all, but they didn't seem to put up much of a fight. So did they just give up and just say, okay, he's got no choice here, and look what he did for us. Look how good he was. Were they so confused by it? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, it did take an hour. It did take an hour for him to do the deed. Mm-hmm. So there was a fight going on, but I think in the end it came down to the fact that his friends wouldn't kill. They wouldn't take a life.
Because it says perhaps the totality of virtue let Smite win. Or perhaps they fought their best. Frankly, Smite didn't care. So I don't know. It does leave that on the table. Did they just ultimately in the end give up and just say, this is hopeless? And did they maybe in the face of Starro, looking at Starro just saying, if we beat Smite, do we have to face that guy now? Well, yeah. And do we even want to do that? Because if Smite's willing to turn on us because of this guy, and this guy was just holding back before, we banded together with him in some hope that we could overtake him. Can we now that we realize he was just holding back, do that? What would you do? I don't know. How hopeless would that be?
That's a tough call because you think about it. This is... would it be easier just to accept death and just see what the other side has to offer? Do you give up that easily? Do you throw down? Because, I personally wouldn't want to work for Starro. I would look for option C, where I'm not working for Starro and I'm not killing Smite. I'd actually, part of me would look for the tactical retreat, see if that's an option, and it doesn't sound heroic, but I don't know if it was all of us, like all of our friends, and we're all banded together, and we had this. I don't know if I could go about killing everybody just so I could be part of Starro's crew. I don't know if I'd want to be part of that crew. I'd like to think that I would recognize that that's just pure evil and wouldn't want to do it. But who knows what's the best way to go about that? It's one of those things that's gotten me thinking as I'm going through with the book, where I talked about how I like, putting my mindset in there, and especially this sequence here, I just started thinking if it was like you, me, our friend Chris, Joe, the other Jim, just all of us were in this situation, and all of us, only one person walks out, would I let you guys kill me, or would I go for the knee? Because I know, okay, he's got a trick knee. Go after that, What do you do?
Wow.
Yeah.
Who's got the trick knee?
Well, doesn't Kendall have a trick knee?
Not that I know of.
Oh, okay. I thought he had a bad knee.
But you've really fought this through. Really? Like, I got to be honest with you. I haven't thought of any of my friends' weaknesses as far as dominating them in case an omnipotent being comes and I've got to kill him.
Well, see, I prepare for these type of deals. Now, the good news is, I don't think I would have engaged in the battle. As soon as Starro said, "Okay, you guys fight," I would have been all right, bye. Use super speed to get the heck out of there.
You know what, Jim? I just want you to know right now, I have a trick knee.
Oh, okay.
You know why I'm telling you that? Because when you go for it, I'm bashing you with a mace. You'll be down low. I'm hitting you right in the head.
Yeah.
But if I'm telling everybody from now on, I have a trick knee.
Yeah. Sweep the leg.
Come on in. You got,
I know
got me right where I want you. I'm going to start wearing a leg brace. Just in case. You know what's interesting here? Would you want to be Starro? Because it's Smite that does show something about who this guy is as his core. That there is that part of him that he's not only wants to follow Starro, he wants to learn from Starro. He feels he has already learned valuable lessons from him. He admires and respects him, wants to, ultimately wants to overtake him and become what he is. I mean, talk about a guy who didn't care anything about conquest. Now he does. So that's something that's drastically different about him now. He's found a purpose. And it'll be interesting to see how that relationship continues as this goes on. That's what I really like about this development here. They've really crafted some interesting villains, not just the main character of Starro, but his whole council there is now an interesting group of characters that I want to follow. And whether they stay with Starro or they go off on their own and they appear in the books in different ways, these characters can now be utilized throughout the run of this series as villains. And cause there to be other villains and other heroes and other instances. So it's really a great way to craft especially with the amount of people in Rebels right now. Because we've got Vril-Dox's team, I should say, who's Brainiac. We've got the Omega Men. We've got now Captain Comet and Adam Strange appearing in this. I don't know if they're going to be regulars. They made an appearance in the most recent issue, and I won't spoil anything else other than that. They're on the cover, so it's kind of hard not to know that they're there. But, this is an all-universe thing that's going on. And they do make reference to Blackest Night. Ooh. So, it's something where they're not ignoring what's going on in the universes. I don't know how that's going to play into the series, but I thought that was cool that they acknowledged it. And I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to spoil anything else about the current series of what's going on right now because we're talking about the annual. But I do think that that's something that's interesting that's going on in the book. It does feel very much a part of the DC universe in the sense that they're acknowledging that, and that this event that's going on out in space is something that's tying up these particular heroes from being a part of what's going on Earth, because Starro is a threat that's coming to Earth right now. He wants to take Earth, and if it wasn't for what, Dox did, we wouldn't be, he'd be there. What would Blackest Night look like with him there?
Oh, God. Yeah, I'd like to see him go up against a couple of Black Lanterns. That'd be interesting.
I'd like to see him against the whole Corps.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd like to see that. I would like to see the Black Lantern JLA versus Starro.
That would be a fight.
Because, wait, I'll be honest. The number of the characters that were there the first meeting with Starros are Black Lanterns now.
Yeah.
At least Aquaman and Martian Manhunter are both a part of that crew.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. Now, as this continues, we find out that we continue on and find out that he's going after the Brainiac son.
Yeah.
And he plans to utilize him as a way to get to the father. It'll be interesting to see whether or not that will work, because previously he hasn't shown a whole lot of interest in his family. So we'll see what that looks like.
Well, even the Daughter of the Storm says he doesn't care about anybody, even his own son. And Starro's like, hey, never underestimate what family can do.
Well, and that was a great segue into Chapter 5, which really gives us the true background of this character of Starro, because we want to know who this guy is, because Starro previously has been just the big, giant starfish. That's what we've always assumed that was. Now we're learning that this is a much bigger thing than we've ever thought it was. It goes so far beyond what we thought. When we see the Hattori, the people of that planet, and this Andres. And we never find out the identity of his brother until much later in the story. And I didn't know if it was going to... I guess I kind of naturally was assuming that Andres was going to be the one that becomes Starro with the way this was set up. I never saw the little kid coming.
That completely threw me, and then it's funny as you look in afterwards, because the opening they show the guy, he's carrying a very similar axe, and I'm like, oh my god, okay, he becomes Starro, oh cool. But if you look at pictures of the current Starro, you see he used to have some type of hair on his head, whereas the brother was clean bald, and the kid is the one who had hair. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
This whole concept of their race, though, having a telepathic union, them being kind of like a hive mind. Well, but not a hive mind. They're shared viewpoints. They communicated that way. So it was common. They had like the same knowledge base to pull from, but unique identities. Is that how you were reading them, Jim?
I took it as just a open communication. It's kind of like from Star Trek Next Generation, the Betazoids, where it's everybody has the telepathic powers there. You can't keep any secrets from anybody. So if you don't have any form of secrets, if everything is completely known, then it makes things very peaceful, because there's no mystery. There's no hidden stuff. There's no hidden agendas. There's no, kind of, politics type stuff.
Everything's open for discussion because it's all laid out before you.
Yeah.
That would be creepy.
That would be creepy, but that would be only creepy if we took our life now and added it. If we always had that existence.
Sure.
It would be a really just a great, way to live if you think about it. How many times we're both relatively honest people, but we have little secrets. We have stuff that we keep from different people, whether you run into some, jerk that you're like, oh, God.
We know right now from this podcast that you've thought about ways to take us all out.
Well, true, yeah, Hey, not just you, so don't feel bad,
No. No.
As a general rule, it's I got multiple plans going on in my head. I got my zombie invasion plan. I got the undead invasion plan. Aliens from space. I got the various plans that are going on inside my psyche. That one day, who knows?
You're like the Batman of this podcast.
Hey, you know what? You got to be prepared for every situation.
You're no longer our dun-dun-dun.
Maybe now the dumb.
I like that. This was totally engaging to me, though. I was glad that this was broken up into chapters where we got multiple stories. And I thought it was clever that they waited till the end to give us his true origin.
Oh, yeah.
Because we got to know him through the eyes of others, and then finally they dropped onto us this introduction of his race that he originally came from, seeing the people overtaken, including Andres and his little brother, and how over time these people started, as their people died? Is that how you read this? As their people died, they started pulling that internally and drew strength from that? Is that what it was? Because they shared so much together? Is that what you were reading there? Because these people are all dead here, right? As the series goes on?
Yeah.
They're all gradually dying because of what happened with Starro?
Yeah, because Starro is slowly dying, and Starro is trying to reborn a new, mother fish to repopulate the Starro. But these people, because of they're so used to the community mind, they're so used to this type of mindset, the telepathic powers, and just it's second nature to them that he's able to resist it, and he's able to move on beyond what is a drone. He's no longer a drone.
It says, though their bodies belonged to the Starro, the link still existed. Within that mental realm, the Hattori were drowning in panic, rage, and fear. So there was like this consciousness of them fighting in this. I was immediately drawn into that. I thought it was very cool. And then we see Andres, and his brother fighting it out, and wow, I totally did not see that coming.
Oh yeah.
And then at last, we see him rip that off of his face.
Oh.
And just, wow. And in his name, I keep forgetting what his name is now, too. It began with a CH. What was his name again? Our little Starro. What was the kid's name? Kobe.
Yeah.
Kobe.
I was looking for it.
Yeah. I did not know they were brothers, nor did I care. I only knew that I wanted to live, but I did not understand. This is the Starro Queen talking. I assumed I faced a single desperate biped, lucky enough to slip its change. In truth, I was fighting the death knell of a species, a distilled madness that passed from Andres to the nearest vessel it could find. So this was something because of the death of his brother. Because he killed his brother. Mm-hmm. That rage that built from that, it was the fear and rage, I think, of the people. And that final act set one of them over the top. Kobe just completely overwhelmed the Starro and just needed to own it and to become the ruler of all of them. I mean, wow. Very impressive looking. I love the design of this character. It's funny, that was another one at first. I remember when I first saw the premise of it with the big star over it, I was kind of like, okay, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
but then when you actually see it in the book in context, this creature looks very impressive. Where another one where, we talked about Red Hood before, where I thought like that new Red Hood looked a little cheesy at first. Again, in context, this all of a sudden looks very powerful and very impressive. I'm like, okay, cheese factor's gone. This looks kind of cool. Like this guy looks impressive.
Yeah, this is definitely a powerhouse. This isn't somebody you can take lightly.
Yeah. And we get to see, of course, leading up to the Justice League today, and I don't know. I'm completely engaged by this. This particular, and I love the concept though that Kobe or Starro, now that he's adopted that identity, deep down wants there to be a force of good powerful enough to defeat him. He wants to believe that. It's something that goes back to the core of his people that is still there. That is interesting. I like that aspect of it, that he will continue conquering all the way through, but wants to believe, and you got to believe that's one of the reasons why he wants to go to Earth, right?
Yeah, Earth has defeated Starro 3 times.
Right.
But it's not him, it's defeated a mother Starro.
Mm-hmm. So it'd be really interesting to see how this all works out and plays out. If this goes beyond Rebels, or if this is something that we see just play out in Rebels. This right now is like, woo, that annual blew me away. When I read that, it was one of the things where I called you and just said, dude, I know there's a lot of things we want to talk about this week, but this was something that I just read that I thought was just mind-blowingly cool. And it really took my whole appreciation of what's going on in Rebels to a whole new level. Because I've liked this book. It's been one of those that's been rising up my stack as far as how I've been enjoying it, especially through now to issue 9. But this annual has now made this a book that I will jump to a lot faster than I have been because of just how cool the premises of this villain. So I'm glad we got a chance to talk about this one.
Oh, yeah.
So like you said, that it sold you on a couple more arcs now.
Yeah, it sold me on Rebels. Tomorrow I'm going to read it.
Let us know when you read it again.
Yeah.
How you felt about it. Did it read better the next time around? Did this annual influence that at all? Or even if you're, I think it'd be interesting to find out if you're in the same place with it. If you feel like, wow, I'm captivated by it now, or the annual was fantastic, but I'm still kind of in the same boat. I think that would be interesting to talk about that and see that, because I'm obviously engaged in the book, but are you in that spot? And that'll be interesting. This is a fun one.
Nothing like the handy-dandy electro claw for carving through metal doors.
Hey, Sean and Jim, it's Zigo from the forums. Hope you guys are doing all right. I thought I'd call because I have another Blackest Night theory, even though my Dark Side theory got shot out the window from last time I called, but it's still pretty awesome. All right. I have 2, maybe 3 little interesting theories going on. My first theory, if you remember, and this is spoilers for Blackest Night number 3, if you remember that when the Indigo Lantern, Indigo 1 came, she came and she was talking about, there was a white light, and then the white light got split into the 7 core, which is green, yellow, red, blue, and all the other respective colors, and the only way to defeat the Black Lanterns is to just combine all the lights and attack. Now, I just thought of something. If you remember in the arc that happened before the Sinestro Corps, weren't the Samurons, I can't pronounce them, the Samurons were collecting the rings and said, we must collect them all? And they never got back to that. You had a yellow, and did they have a yellow? I forgot. I think it was after. They had a green and the pink, and, well, anyway, they had that. They were collecting them, and there were other stools, so what if they are collecting that to attack? Assuming that those were the ones that were collecting it. The issues were so back, and I'm too lazy to dive into the old ones, but I remember that they had that. So what if that's what's going on with that? Because that was never referenced again. Maybe what if that's what's going to do it? They're collecting them to fight against the Blackest Night. Just something to throw out there. Also, is it just me, or does Indigo 1 look like a monitor? No, I'm just saying. She looks like one. And last but not least, another theory that I have, which may kind of throw a little skepticism out the window, but all these Black Lanterns, all these revivals, all these things going on, assuming that Bruce really may be dead, even though we kind of saw him in the past, we're still not clear because of how the way it was written. What if Batman really will return here? Even if it's from the past or something, what if at the end of this event, Batman, Bruce Wayne, will come back and go, hey, you know what? I'm back. Let's kick some butt. Just, you never know, because they still haven't gotten through with the whole skull and the whole things like that matter. So yeah, that's pretty much those are pretty much my theories for Blackest Night so far. I'll see you guys around the forums, and take care. Bye.
Don't worry about ideas being thrown out the window. It's kind of funny. The Dark Side one, at the time, remember, we didn't have a whole lot of information when you were throwing out Dark Side, so it was an interesting theory at that point in time because we didn't know where they were going with that. So it's fun. And that's at the fun of reading a series is speculating. I speculate all the time on the show. Sometimes I speculate and I'm really close. Other times I speculate and I'm on a completely different planet than where the series was going. Actually, that's more often than not. But that's what happens with all of us with speculation. Half the fun, I think, of what shows that a series is good is that we even bother speculating. Jim and I talked on this episode about Rebels, and Jim was talking about how when he was previously reading the series, he wasn't thinking about it beyond the book. But it was clear from our conversation that he was thinking about the annual beyond the book. And that's a show of a great issue that really has you thinking beyond the series. And that's great. I mean, this Blackest Night is a great example of that. As far as your idea of trying to collect them all and connect them all, I think we are seeing that right now. The Indigo Lanterns are trying to bring them all together to do that, and I'm guessing that it is on some level going to lead to more revelations on this White. I don't know. I'm open to a lot of theories. My current thing on the end is obviously I think a lot of this is being pulled from a lot of Green Lantern mythos, a lot of things that have been going on in the DC Universe. I don't think we're going to see Bruce back in this one. I think we might get some more revelations as far as what really is happening with Bruce. But I do think that it is interesting that we haven't seen Bruce resurrected as a Black Lantern. That skull's definitely being able to be used for a purpose, and I do think part of the reason why is that he's dying and being revived over and over again in multiple lives. I'm guessing because of that Omega sanction. I don't know. It's really interesting. I wouldn't, hey, if they're going to do some surprise revelation and, we're going to see something really amazing, another big reveal of Bruce like we saw at the end of Final Crisis, I would eat that up in an instant. This is funny, though. I don't actually want to see him fully back yet. I would love to see some more information. I'm loving the mystery. I want to follow it. I want Bruce back. I'm a diehard Bruce fan. But right now, I think Gotham is incredibly interesting in his absence, and I think it's too soon to go that route. Although, by the time Blackest Night is over, that might be the time to lead into Bruce coming back, because if you look at timing-wise with what's coming up next summer, with Grant Morrison having a couple miniseries that's going to be leading into, I'm guessing, the return of Bruce, that would make sense that might be a prelude to those particular events. I don't know. It's I'm really just enjoying the ride with Blackest Night right now. I'm enjoying hearing people's theories, and I don't, how much of yours is going to pan out. Who knows? That's half the fun of speculating on this. So, and please feel free to keep calling in, not just you, any listeners. And Ziggo is on the Comic Tube podcast. If you haven't checked it out, Ziggo Leroy is a great friend of the show, and definitely check out his podcast because I really enjoy it, and I enjoy always talking with Leroy. So, give him a shot.
Hey, this is Daryl from the forums, and from Comic Book Roadshow, DaFixer, Hideout, all that stuff. I wanted to leave a comment on the Smallville episode, 179. It was a good episode. I enjoyed it. I'm also a Smallville fan, but I have to say, after season 6, I think that there's been kind of a writing rut in the show. I mean, there have been some writing choices that were kind of off. I mean, even in terms of people forgetting their own continuity that they built up with Smallville, which is why I'm very happy with this season's Smallville, because they referred back to continuity. They remembered, everything that was put before it. We got back to Clark training. We got back to remembering that, what happened to his father before, his adoptive father before, when he messed with time, instead of them forgetting these things. So, because last season was pretty hard to get through. Season 8 was just, in my opinion, the writing was pretty bad. I mean, it was like the people writing it just were not into the show, or not like there from the beginning. It just felt like they would write themselves and it was going nowhere, and then with the no-show fight with Doomsday, with Chloe acting out of character. I mean, she's been such a smart character, throughout from season 1, and to have her, go off with Davis and not talk to Clark. And I mean, it was just off the way that they wrote her. She's a smarter character than what they showed in the last 2 seasons. So I am happy. I want to see Clark in the suit, which I'm happy they put him in the suit. I would love if they just made it Superman. If he was, either they did the movie and he became Superman, or they even did the show and he became Superman. I would have no problem with that. Just keep the mythos. They don't have to go and rewrite anything. They can just keep it going, and I think it would be a smooth transition myself. But, I know a lot of people want it to end, or not. They just have a problem with the show continuing, but to me, I loved it. So I like it, the mythos that they created right now, and I would love to see him become Superman. So I'm there for the season. I was there for every season. Even when I have issues with it, there's still parts I enjoy. So I'm going to watch Smallville, no matter what. As long as they can do 10, 11 seasons, whatever, I'm still going to watch it. I'm a Superman fan. I can't, that's just, that's something that I'm going to do. So happy with the season. Glad for the talk. I hope we get, like, in the middle of the season, you guys do another episode, Smallville, oriented episode, because I really enjoy hearing y'all talk about, Smallville. So, all right, great show. Thanks, John and Jim. You do a great job. You put on a good show every week. So, and it's like a regular for me to just say your best podcast. You're one of the top, my favorite podcasts I listen to every week. So, just want to say, hey, later.
Oh, thanks for that, Daryl, the kind words and the friendship. You know what? It's funny. I think one of the reasons, I enjoyed last season. I did. And obviously, you and I had different experiences last season, but I do think it is telling that if you look back on our episodes last season, we didn't do a ton of talking about Smallville. I enjoyed last season. It was a lot of fun. But this season, I jumped at it right away. I was really eager and excited to do it. So that tells you something about just this opening salvo of this season, how much it grabbed me. You and I are completely in sync about this season of Smallville. I would say every single episode so far has had a pop to it. There's something exciting about this season. So we're definitely going to be talking about it a lot more. Actually, this last week's episode was written by Brian Q. Miller, who's currently writing the Batgirl series. And that was stellar as well. The zombie episode before that was really cool. This season's got a lot of pop to it and a lot of excitement. I think part of it is exactly what you're saying. They're going back to, they're making sure that they're sticking to some of that continuity. But I also think one of the other things that's a strength now is I think that they finally realized that they can start moving past the original plan for Smallville because it's stuck around for a lot longer than they originally anticipated. So I think now what we're seeing is they've got a clear idea on where they want this thing to go the next 2 seasons. For me, the hook for me right now is the relationship between Clark and Lois. Erica Durance as Lois has become such a likable character. She went from, in the beginning, and purposely, she was meant to be somebody that you had a hard time liking, and she was just one of those rough and rugged characters. And we've gotten to see how multifaceted this character is, and she's a strong, independent woman, yet there's a soft side to her. She's very interesting as a character, and the development of that character is really intriguing to me. The Toyman appearance last episode I thought was just stellar. It was great to see that character back again, and used in a way that made him feel like he was a part of the comic book universe, yet it fits Smallville, and Green Arrow, I'm enjoying his storytelling in all this, and the growth of Clark. And how we're seeing Clark become closer and closer to Superman. And you're right, I want to see him get there as well. I want to see it continue to develop, though, organically the way it is, where it's naturally feeling like he's leading to that. There's something about this season, that there's an excitement of this season that I have not felt in a long time in the show. I'm not going back and canceling anything I've said about the show. I've been enjoying it all along, but there is definitely a pop to this season. And I would say, people, if you've walked away from Smallville, if you were a fan of Smallville and you're hearing this commentary, and you walked away, because I've seen a lot of people on the forum saying, I kind of dropped it, a few seasons ago, it just kind of lost interest for me. I will say, even if you've disagreed with my opinions over the last couple seasons, there is something special about this season that has been different than the last couple. I've enjoyed the last couple greatly, but this season I'm excited on a huge level for every episode. Normally with Smallville, I TiVo it and I watch it after the fact. I speed through the commercials. I got to be honest with you, on Friday nights, I'm jumping to Smallville. If I'm able to be home, I'm watching it as soon as possible on Friday nights. And that's a testament to the show, because I watch a lot of programming now. It's actually that and Heroes. Heroes this season, I got to give the same commentary on with Heroes. 2 shows that I've been enjoying because of the superhero thing. They've got me hooked because it's a superhero show, but there's something different about these seasons for both of these shows. Heroes, I think, is doing something for me that it hasn't done since season 1, and Smallville's doing the same thing for me right now with a lot of pop. So it's a great time to be a superhero fan and watching some of these shows, because the season's been good. I hope you guys are getting that same experience with these shows as I am, because wow. And thank you, Daryl. Daryl's been a great friend, just like Leroy in the last call. Leroy and Daryl have been friends that I've made actually and gotten to know from the New York Comic Con and from the podcast arena. Just gotten to chat with them. And as Daryl mentioned, DaFixer's Hideout and Comic Book Roadshow, and I'll have links to all of those podcasts along in these episode show notes. And thanks, guys, for participating. And it's nice to have such a great, fun podcasting community of listeners and fellow podcasters and creators who get involved in shows. It's just, this is what comics are supposed to be. It's actually what we've all grown up wanting comics to be, is being able to talk about it, whether we agree, disagree. None of it matters as long as we get a chance to have an outlet where we can, share our passion for this medium together. So this is great. And thanks again, guys. I want to share a couple emails before I wrap this up. It's funny, this was supposed to be a quote-unquote an hour to an hour and a half show, and Jim and I had so much fun recording the other night that I'm throwing on some listener commentary right now, because I like to have you guys a part of the show, and I'm really trying to get back to that more and more. And this one's from Mike Rosmus. Hey there, Sean and Jim. I'm writing you guys for 2 things. First, Have you guys read Batgirl number 3 yet? I have to say that I'm loving this book. Both the story and the artwork are spectacular. It is reminding me of the Batman Beyond cartoon. We have the new crime fighter with the previous face under the cowl as the mentor. It also harkens to a Birds of Prey-ish feeling. For all those facts, I have made this one of my monthly pull comics at my local shop. When I buy my books, I usually pick them up for the art first and the writing second. The only exception is Gail Simone. Her writing is pure gold no matter who the artist on the book is. However, being an artist myself, I tend to pay particular attention to the visual aspects of the book. That being said, did you catch the mistake about halfway through the book? I'm not sure which page it was exactly. I don't have my comic in front of me here at work. When Stephanie is fighting the Scarecrow, she gets blasted with his gas and starts hallucinating. First she sees Robin and then Spoiler. However, the whole time it's just her mind playing tricks on her as she really is fighting the Scarecrow. We see Barbara talking to Stephanie and keeping track of her on some sort of video or radar feed. In one panel in particular, while Stephanie is fighting Scarecrow Spoiler, we see on Barbara's radar 2 figures fighting. One being Stephanie Batgirl on the ground and the second being Spoiler standing over her. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Spoiler just in Stephanie's mind? She's really fighting the Scarecrow, and he doesn't have the ability to morph into other characters. Hence, Barbara should be seeing Batgirl and the Scarecrow on her screen, not Batgirl and Spoiler. I actually did look back, and I gotta be honest with you, I did not catch that one. Very good catch, because it was on the radar screen and it was all in green. You can see that the other figure standing over Batgirl is in fact someone wearing a cape of some sort, which would indicate that it would be the hallucination, which should not be showing up on the radar. Anyway, back to the email. I know it's not a big deal, but it just made me pause for a second and go, oops, someone messed up. And of course, my second thought, completely honest here, was, I wonder if Sean and Jim caught that. You know, it's funny that he does say this, because when I read and I catch certain elements or things that I think are funny or certain sequences or, something even from continuity from way in the past. Like the JLA annual, the 80-page annual, for example, there was a bit in there where we got to see Kendra Saunders, one of Shira Hall's past personalities, meet up with Red Arrow. And that was something like my first thought was, would Jim know what that was? Or, did any of our listeners catch that? Is anyone going to send in an email or something about that? Those are the kind of things that I think of now, too, where I never used to think of that. I used to just read things and say, wow, that's kind of cool. But there is a certain charge now to being able to have this kind of interactivity, which is why I wanted emails and voicemails to do it a lot more often like this again. Anyway, back to this. And okay, now, for the second reason I'm writing, it's to say thank you. You guys were my tour guides to the DC Universe. I'll be 36 years old next month, and I've been reading comics since I was about 12. I'm married with 2 kids of my own, and work full-time as a graphic designer illustrator. But even with all I have going on, I still make time to leave this world for a few minutes a day and immerse myself into a comic. It's a great escape. As I said, reading comics since I was 12, and 99% of those for 24 years, I have been strictly a Marvel reader. I have been picking up a DC comic here and there as a kid, but always found the writing and art to be lacking. Marvel seemed to be the superior comic company to me, to the point that I would bash DC. DC, I'm so sorry. Then about a year and a half ago, my kids were watching a Justice League Unlimited marathon on TV. I, being the Marvel zombie that I was, dismissed it and only half-heartedly paid attention. That was until I heard some of the celebrity voices that I recognized, such as Nathan Fillion, Adam Baldwin, Marina Baccarin, etc. That made me start to watch, and I was hooked. That next day, my wife and I took the kids to Best Buy, and we bought every season of Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. A little expensive, but I had to see the other episodes. For the next week, we had JL marathons every night. This, of course, made me fall in love with the character of Hawkgirl. The next week, I went to the comic shop and picked up many issues of Hawkgirl as I could get my hands on. Then I saw she was in the Justice League. Loved the art in that, so I bought it. But I decided I was only going to limit myself to the Justice League as a DC pull. I already had over 15 pulls of comics each month, 1 Dark Horse, IDW, 13 Marvel. Then I stumbled onto your podcast, and the rest is history. You turned me on to so many different DC titles, I can't even begin to thank you enough. Your descriptions, reviews, interviews, everything made me want to read more DC books. Well, here I am today, a year and a half later, and my monthly pull list at my local shop includes 1 Dark Horse book, 1 IDW book, 1 Marvel book, haven't given up on the X-Men just yet, and 10 DC titles. And they are all thanks to you. I'm loving Blackest Night, Green Arrow, Black Canary, Wonder Woman, Secret Six, Batgirl, etc. And it's all because of you guys. Okay, So, the story and the art have a lot to do with it too, but I wouldn't have known half of these titles if I hadn't listened to your show. Oh, and I've gone back and bought the entire Simone run on Birds of Prey. So while you guys are by far my favorite podcast, I wouldn't want to introduce you to my wife anytime soon. She fully supports my comic hobby, however. She has now lost more of her house to my new DC comic collection, and it's all your fault. Of all your podcasts I've listened to, one thing sticks in my mind the most. You once said, if you're not enjoying the books you're reading, try something else. There are so many books out there that you will find one you enjoy reading. I had fallen into a trap with my Marvel books. I had become a Marvel zombie. I bought the books because I had always bought them, not because I was enjoying them. I was at the point that I would go to my local shop once a month to get my books. I just wasn't that excited. Now, however, I can't wait for Wednesdays to get here, and I'm in the shop weekly to get my latest DC fix. I know this is a bit long, but I wanted to express my sincere gratitude for what you guys do. Please keep up the great work, and in all honesty, DC should pay you guys for what you do. Talk about free marketing. Take care, guys. Mike Rosmus, Portland, Maine. P.S. I wish I had written to you guys sooner and known that you, Sean, were going to be in Portland a few months ago. That wedding you went to at the Church of the Immaculate Conception, yes, the church is beautiful, and both of my kids go to the cathedral school there. If you had time, I would have bought you a beer at one of the local brew pubs and shown you Casablanca Comics as a way to say thanks. Have a good one, guys. That's really, really cool. One of the reasons why I do this show, and just to clarify kind of my own experience with comics, I've been reading comics since I was a little kid. I will say that, there were times where I was reading just a couple of DC books, and I was reading books from Marvel. I was reading books from Dark Horse. I read things like the Valiant line. I loved their whole universe. I loved the Malibu universe was out. So, I do mean everything that I say when I say, if you're not enjoying what you're reading, try something else. The books on the show that we talk about, Jim and I grab books that we're interested in talking about on the show, that we're excited about reading. I'm genuinely enjoying doing this podcast because I'm really enjoying my reading right now. And honestly, if it got to the point where I wasn't enjoying what I'm reading, this podcast would change, because I would rather do a podcast where I'm really enjoying what I'm chatting about and really excited and ready to, pop and do episodes and things like that, than to do a podcast that it's such a chore to get through these books to do it. It is interesting, like when we have commentary on this one, like when Jim was talking about, his feelings about Rebels, and we're in very different places on that. That's interesting commentary to me. I really, really enjoy that. But I wouldn't want to start doing a podcast where it turns out every week that we're like, well, yeah, another book came out this week and we just really don't like it. There's a lot of wonderful review podcasts out there, and I'm not in any way putting any review podcasts down, because review podcasts are very balanced both ways on that. It became apparent very early on into this show that just wasn't what I wanted to do. And that, fortunately, Jim's gone along with me on this. I want to talk about books that I enjoy. I want to talk about what's great about this hobby. And I want to promote the idea, because there's a lot of people out there that I really do feel right now are reading comics and just kind of going through the motions, and they're missing the point of this hobby. I've never done that. I mean, it's something that's very foreign to me, and if it's something that I can help somebody else enjoy comics more, not that people need, there's a lot of you that are listening to this are just kind of like, I don't need that, dude. I'm fine on that end. But I do think that there's a certain message there to say, because there were stages in my life where I was reading the same book for way too long, and I needed to make a change, and I did. And, I moved around, and it's funny. Jim talks about how he's more writer based. I kind of fall into that category, but I would actually say I'm more creator based, in the sense that I do tend to pick up books with my favorite artists and tend to follow them. I tend to follow my favorite writers. I tend to follow favorite creative teams. If I see a writer and an artist I like on a book, that's an immediate jump. But I will tend to follow one or the other. I tend to prefer, when I see a solicitation where I love both, it's like gold. I do think, because I have more of an English background, and I'm not. Well, no, see, I wouldn't say that. I tend to make it seem like I don't pursue artists, and that's not true. I really do tend to pursue the art just as much as I pursue writing. I do think that that's one of the reasons why I like this medium, and it is something where I love reading novels. I always love novels. I've always have. I've got a just as much as I enjoy the wide variety of books you can read in comics, I enjoy the wide variety of experience you can get in novels. But the one thing that I think is a pure joy about this medium is the fact that you get the artwork with wonderful, great storytelling. So I do think I misrepresent myself on this show a lot of times, where I make it seem like I don't follow the art as much because I'm not an artist, and that's not true. It really is the artwork draws me in just as much. My whole office here is, I've got original art, sketches, things like that I've gotten at conventions, framed on the walls. I've got posters of favorite comics framed on the wall. I've got comics signed. So, I mean, those are all things that, and they're signed by writers and artists, and, so I tend to follow both. It is interesting. I think that's something unique about this medium. But I think you can go either route. Like you said, Jim tends to follow for the writers. You tend to follow for the artists. I fall somewhere in the middle. I don't know. I'm sure I lean probably more one way than the other. I'm not quite honestly sure what that is, though. But that's part of the fun of this medium. Anyway, I want to thank you for the kind words. I wish I had known, and I've got to start, just kind of when I'm going on a vacation or we're going to be going somewhere or something like that, saying it on the show a little bit ahead of time, because one of the things that I really enjoy about this podcast is I do feel that people who listen to this show, I consider you friends. And, we interact a lot of times through emails on forums, or if we've been lucky enough to run each other at conventions. But it is really great to run into you there. When I was at the Mid-Ohio Con, I stopped over at the PK Media table and got to hang out for a little bit with Sean Pryor from PKD Media and Chad Ciccone. And Chad is a friend of the show, and Sean Pryor I met from CGS at one of the CGS Super Shows, so it was great to kind of hang out and chat with them. And then I ran into Nuggy99 from the forums, who is great. That's something I really like. And then it was funny, I feel really terrible right now. There was a listener who, and I didn't know he was a listener at the time, on opening day on Sunday, we were standing outside of the opening convention room, and I was talking to somebody, and he was talking about the fact that he's just been going to conventions for years, and talked about how he met Isaac Asimov, and we were just having this wonderful, rich conversation that led into a discussion about fables, and partway through, I mentioned somewhere along the line in passing that, I did a DC-related podcast through that reveal when he was talking about that, and we talked about Swamp Thing a little bit. And he pulled out his iPod, and he was listening, he had the show on there as one of the things that he listens to. So, that's the kind of stuff that it is fun for me to go to cons and meet friends, and that is something that I think is nice about this medium now, and the internet. A lot of times the internet gets a bad rap, and there are negative things. There's, quote-unquote trolls on the internet, people who just pop in to really just ruin a conversation instead of adding to it. And that's not to say that negative commentary, if you've got something where you're on a different side of the fence, you can have those discussions are great. Critical discussions are great. There's nothing wrong with that. Trolls are people, though, their sole purpose is to log on and just be negative for the sake of being negative. Not that they're trying to add anything constructive to a discussion. Even if it's another perspective, a different perspective, that's one thing. But trying to purposely derail a discussion by adding in just utter nonsense, that's being a troll. That's a lot of times what the internet is viewed as, a whole bunch of trolls. It's not true. There is this type of community that's out there. You see it on a lot more forums now. And I want to say that comic book fans as a whole, more and more of them are becoming proactive about joining and jumping into the internet to find positive interactions about it. So I do think we are agents of change as far as showing the internet that, hey, this can be a productive place as well. So I think it's really great to be a part of that community, and I love running into people. I was when I was at Mid-Ohio Con, I was with my wife, and we had a wonderful time there together. But, it was when I wasn't at the con this time around. Usually, I'm going out with friends that I run into at the con. This time around, my wife and I it was kind of a vacation for the two of us to finally get away, and we went and spent some time together, which was nice. But I do love that at cons, and whenever and honestly, if I had known you were in Portland, Maine, I would have made some time to, at least for an hour or two, sit down and chit-chat with you. So I apologize for not having mentioned that earlier on the show for that particular purpose, because that would have been fun. I sometimes forget that our listening audience is spread out a lot more than I realize. That I tend to think, when Jim and I record, we're in this small room, and it's hard to a lot of times visualize that we've got people in a lot more places than even I realize. We've got a Frapper map on the website, as a way to kind of pin on there where we've got people at. But it's still, I keep forgetting that there's a listening audience out there that I don't always interact with as much. Like you said, you're just starting to email into the show. And that's something that I really enjoy about comics podcasting now. Anyway, thanks again for the email, and I really appreciate it. This last one's from Ken here, and I really wanted to make sure to get this one on here. Just a quick note. I'm a few episodes behind listening, but I wanted to bring to your attention something. Several times recently, seemingly always in the context of discussing the Secret Six, you pronounced this word to rhyme with cowl. And he's talking about Gaul, G-A-O-L. I do call it Gaul. And it really, even though it doesn't look like it, it actually rhymes with and means the same thing as jail. So it's the British spelling, like tire for tire, etc. And you went to the freedictionary.com, and it's the jail spelling, and that's funny. Incidentally, and you know what? I'm probably going to keep butchering that because I've got it so stuck on the brain, but I'll probably catch myself partway through. So now I'm probably going to have two pronunciations of it, but that's kind of funny. Incidentally, as I continue to write and listen, you and Jim just hesitated over the pronunciation of the name Smythe, which maybe with an E on the end. I'm not as certain here, as names are funny things. Basically, it should be pronounced however the bearer wants. So I'm sure there are both pronunciations out there, but this is a fictional character, so I guess it would be how Gail Simone wants. But when I was in graduate school, my old drunken mentor was suggesting a book by the British scholar named Smythe. And it's same thing. It's pronounced Smith. I've always taken as a rule of thumb to default to Smith, especially if they're a Brit. And I think it's pretty exclusively a British spelling. So it's S-M, and I do believe in the comic, I don't have the comic in front of me, I believe it's S-M-Y-T-H-E in the comic, and you're saying it's Smith and not Smythe. You know what? I know on that episode, I'm in particular the one that did this, that I was jumping between Smythe and Smith because I wasn't sure. So I don't know at this point that I still am sure, because you're right, it's a name. Actually, your pronunciation for jail makes a lot more sense to me. This one right now, you're right, especially because I'm a teacher. I know that I have students who the same spelling over the years have had different pronunciations for it. So you're right, that one is a little bit more inconclusive. But it is fun. I love this part of the show because I screw up all the time on the show with pronunciations. We try to catch ourselves whenever possible or whenever we're not sure and make a reference to it for just this purpose because I want to get corrected. Continuing to love the show. Cheers, Kent, and that's absent-minded professor from the forums, and Kent Hare. Thanks, Kent. And yeah, I do that all the time. Jim and I are going to keep doing that. We don't try to, but it is just one of the natural things that are a part of the show, so thanks. Actually, before I wrap this up, I want to give a shout-out to Donald Ferguson and his brother Jack. Jack actually is doing a podcast called Iceberg Lounge. It's the Iceberg Lounge podcast, and I've got the link for this one in the show notes. It's iceberglounge.libsyn.com, and Jack's been a listener of our show. I've got this now on my iPod to put into my rotation, but it's got an interesting lineup of episodes as I'm looking through here that seems to cover all of comics and a lot of pop culture and all that as well. So it's going to be a fun podcast for me to listen to. I'll admit I haven't listened yet, but it's definitely queued up on there. I know that for the week of October 18th, they have a Penguin Award, and one of the books that are in the Penguin Award is Gotham City Sirens #4. And so I'm going to definitely take a look at this podcast. I'm really interested in checking it out. So it's the Iceberg Lounge podcast. You can get it on iTunes, or the links will be in the show notes if you want to visit their website as well. But I'll be checking it out. That's very, very cool. And Donald's been sending us a lot of entries to the Ragdoll of the Whatnot contest. So anyway, I want to thank you, Jack, for listening to our show. And I'm definitely going to be checking out your podcast. And Donald, I want to thank you for all the entries as well. It's very, very cool to have such participation in this contest. I'm having a blast with it, so thanks so much.
Can Batman escape? One hint, the worst is yet to come.
Our next episode, we're going to continue talking about the Bat books. We also want to talk about Red Tornado, the miniseries that's out right now, and Magog. So there's a lot of Bat book discussion to be coming on. We're going to talk about the annuals as well, featuring Azrael, and talk kind of casually about those. So Red Robin is a book that we want to discuss. We're saving Batgirl for a little bit later in the month. We're going to be doing something special with Batgirl, and we have a whole bunch of things planned, actually, that we want to discuss on the show. It's a matter of just gradually getting to them and fitting them in. We also have a segment coming up that we're going to be doing on Manhunter, so we have some cool things coming down the right pike with the Bat universe as well. Real quickly, I want to tell everyone about the Vigilante Challenge. Jim and I did this a while ago with Manhunter, and Vigilante is a book that I'm enjoying. And when I was talking to Marv Wolfman, I had the pleasure of getting a book signed from him, and I got to buy a couple scripts from him at the Mid-Ohio Con. And I was just chatting briefly with him, and I told him that I'm really loving the book Vigilante. I think it's a really cool read. It's something a little different. I like some of these books with smaller, lesser-known characters. They add something to my reading experience that I get some huge pop from my big top-tiered characters like Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman. But then there's something special about reading like a book like Secret Six, which has some of your lesser-known characters, and reading a Booster Gold, which is kind of falls somewhere in the middle. And I like reading from all over the spectrum. Jonah Hex is another book, and Vigilante is in that ilk for me. It's just a great, fun read. And with issue number 11, it's going to be starting a new arc. And it's great for fans who've been reading Vigilante because it's going to continue his new status quo, which builds off of where the book's been going. But it's also going to be a good jumping on point, I think, for new readers. That's going to be something that's going to be interesting to see. But Jim and I are going to do a cover-to-cover of issue number 11. And I like to, especially if we're doing like a challenge like this, I like to let listeners know ahead of time. About 2 weeks after the book comes out, we're going to air an episode where we do a cover-to-cover review of Vigilante number 11. I think it's a great series, but I'd love your commentary on it. And even if you pick it up just for the show, you're not a Vigilante reader, and it's not your cup of tea, we'd love your commentary on that, too. What is it that didn't grab you about the book? As much as we want people to send in, like if you're a new reader to it or a current reader who's been reading for a long time, tell us what you're loving about it. So we'd like to get, a whole bunch of listener commentary on this episode. So give Vigilante a chance. Is it a book that you enjoyed? Is it a book you'd continue reading? What is it that you like about it? I think it's a fantastic book. I love the character, so I'd love to get some people to try it out and see if it's a book for you. Not everything that I enjoy is necessarily going to be for everybody, but I would love to get some commentary on this particular book because it is one of my favorites. So Vigilante Challenge, Vigilante number 11, we're going to do it on Raging Bullets, and we'd love to have you guys pick it up and see if it's a book for you. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com, where you can pick up the Batman 80-page giant, regularly $5.99, 50% off, only $2.99. And if you're checking out InStockTrades.com, be sure to join us next week for Preacher, the Book 1 hardcover. Features more blood and blasphemy than any mainstream comic in memory, according to Entertainment Weekly. Regularly $39.99, 47% off, only $21.19, and that collects issues 1 through 12. And Volume 1 and 2 in trade are available for $14.99 regularly, 47% off, only $7.94 each. Remember, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com are your source for discount comic books. So please make sure to be checking out DCB Service and InStockTrades.com, and I want to thank them for continuing to support our show. We'll be back Sunday or Monday with a new show.
Bye.
This is a contest entry from Eli Ganias, and we're going to close out the show with that instead of our usual theme song, because I think it's really funny. So thank you very much, Eli, for this contest entry, and I hope you all enjoy this.
How do you do, I see you've met my faithful Dr. Norge. He's just a little down, because when you knocked, he thought it was Hawkman at the door. Don't get freaked out by my comic books. Check out my variant cover. I'm not much of a man by the light of day, but at night I'll be your Comic-Con brother. I'm just the sensei of the whatnot. From transsexual Cleveland, Ohio. Please stay for a bite. I'll read Blackest Night or anything else that you wish. We have the new JSA or the reformed JLA. Good for a hoorah or watish. Let me show you around. We'll go underground. I doubt you'll find this so boring. Sit right there in the Green Lantern chair and watch a 4-hour podcast recording. I'm just the sensei of the whatnot. From transsexual Cleveland, Ohio. Oh, who's on the phone?
Night.
Oh, it's Gail Simone.
Night.
Her Secret 6 is so awesome. What's that, my friend? You've lost your Bic pen? My word, is that what I've sat on? I'm just the sensei of the whatnot. From transsexual Cleveland, Ohio. I'm just the sensei of the whatnot. A dressed-up Duke of from Cleveland, Ohio.